Chapter 1942. The people from the finance company left. Although they did not use force, the name of the finance company gave off a very bad feeling. Even if Demi was a high-ranking military officer, it was useless. Demi and Sonnenfeld sat in the room, neither of them speaking. "Dad, why are you in debt to the loan sharks?" "Before my movie was released, I thought that the film company's stock would soar because of my movie, so I borrowed some money to buy the company's stock," Sonnenfeld said helplessly. "You know the result." Demi was also helpless. She also knew that her father had been in trouble. His father had ended up in his current situation because he had invested all of his assets into stocks. "Do you know the background of those loan sharks?" Demi asked. "Yes, they're New Yorkers." Of course, the New Yorkers Sonnenfeld was talking about was not just a magazine. New Yorkers referred to a wide range of things, and one of them was widely known as the gang. This was also a very famous gang in the United States. Demi's face gradually darkened. The gang's structure was very complicated. It could even influence politicians. Therefore, it was difficult for Demi to use the military's power. Suddenly Demi thought of an idea. A solution that was not really a solution. "Dad, stay here for now. I'll think of something," Demi said as she left in a hurry and headed to the military base headquarters. Seeing Demi return, Demi's adjutant immediately came over. "Sir, aren't you on leave?" "I'm fine, so I came back," Demi said calmly. Due to the explosion on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain, Demi had been demoted. Now she was only a major. However, her authority did not decrease because of that. Instead, she was authorized to handle some special events. Now, she was in charge of the entire military base. After Demi returned to her office, she immediately opened a file on her computer. Demi had access to a lot of secrets. Not long ago, she discovered one of the missions. The higher-ups had given her $30 million for this mission. It could be said that this mission was the most expensive mission that Demi had ever encountered. After all, some missions in third-world countries only cost a few $100,000 to a few $1 million. Eliminate the Sala lab in the desert near the capital of Baja California. The mastermind behind Sarah's laboratory was the culprit behind the explosion of the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain. At present, the approximate location of Sala's laboratory had been determined. It was located underground within 200 square kilometers. Demi stared at the description of the mission, reading every single useful information in detail. At the moment, it was still impossible to find out the true identity of the owner of Sarah's laboratory, so it was best to keep at least one person alive. At the same time, Sarah's laboratory was conducting unknown experiments, and the contents of the experiments were likely to involve human and biological experiments that violated national and international laws. There were also many unnatural monsters in the desert that were extremely aggressive. Because it was located in Mexico, it could not receive military support, nor could it carry too many extraordinary weapons. However, they could hire international mercenaries, and the activity budget was capped at $30 million. Demi thought about it. At the moment, she could only mobilize about 500 people in the military base. There were only about 300 people who could carry out the mission, while the other 200 were logistics personnel. Furthermore, it was impossible for all 300 of them to complete the mission at the same time. For this operation, they could only mobilize about 150 people at most. During the last operation on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain, she had lost nearly 100 people. This time, the target was Sarah's laboratory itself, so the danger would definitely be higher than the last time. Wanting to completely destroy Sarah's laboratory with just 150 people? The difficulty was too high. Demi thought about it for a long time. According to her best plan, she would complete this mission alone. She would falsely report the use of the funds, then withhold a portion of the funds to pay off her father's debt. As a military general, she naturally had a way. For example, she could set up a shell company, then use the shell company's account to transfer the funds to this company. However, the prerequisite was that she had enough strength to deal with Sarah's laboratory. If she couldn't deal with Sarah's laboratory, then the higher-ups of the military would definitely conduct a detailed investigation of the operation. To find out the reason for the failure, this would increase the possibility of her withholding funds being exposed. If she could complete this mission, then all she needed to do was to report the operation, and the higher-ups wouldn't get to the bottom of it and investigate where the funds were used. Demi thought about it for a long time, trying to find an appropriate plan to complete this mission. However, she lacked sufficient strength, and this operation was outside of the country, which increased the difficulty of her mission. What should she do? Demi suddenly thought of someone. Chen Zhao, the culprit that caused her father to go bankrupt. He was also the person she hated the most. Demi wasn't really willing to interact with Chen Zhao. This was because Chen Zhao was someone as strong as her. Moreover, he had almost no weaknesses. He had enormous assets, and in this country, rich people were the privileged class. Moreover, his personal strength was unfathomable. After thinking for a long time, Demi finally decided to interact with Chen Zhao. Demi packed up the confidential documents and went to Chen Zhao's residence. "Boss, here's the financial report from Citibank." Portia handed it to Chen Zhao. Portia had already seen the numbers on it. Chen Zhao's expenses last month were huge, but they weren't even as much as the interest on his bank account. This meant that no matter how much Chen Zhao spent, his money still didn't decrease. His money didn't decrease. Instead, it continued to increase. Of course, this didn't include Chen Zhao's personal income. Chen Zhao's bank account was enough to make Portia's scalp go numb. Chen Zhao glanced at the financial report, and then put it away. Chen Zhao had never been good at math. Thus, he'd always been very casual about financial reports. Of course, if he found out that the bank's agent Andrews had cheated Chen Zhao's money one day, he could ask the bank for compensation with this financial report. Just then the butler system sent a message. "Master, a stranger has entered Mingyue Villa. After checking the license plate, we can confirm that the owner is Demi Sonnenfeld, a mid-level general in the military major rank." Chapter 1943. She was a guest. But Demi wasn't a good guest. It was obvious from her gaze and expression when she'd arrived. She definitely wasn't a guest. Portia stood beside Chen Zhao. Looking at Demi's angry face, she was even more annoyed. Last time, Demi had used her to threaten Chen Zhao. It would be strange if she had a good attitude towards Demi. Chen Zhao crossed his legs and looked at Demi. "Ms. Demi, if you're just here to stare at me, I can take a photo for you. You can stare at it day and night." Demi took a deep breath. Even here, Demi was still hesitant about whether or not to cooperate with Chen Zhao. But in the end, she made up her mind. "Ms. Portia, can you give me some space? I have something to discuss with your boss." Portia was even more annoyed. "You don't pay me. Why should I listen to you?" Demi looked at Chen Zhao. "Mr. Chen, what do you think? Portia, go and accompany the kids." Chen Zhao also wanted to know why Demi was looking for him. If Portia was here, Demi definitely wouldn't say anything. What she wanted to tell him was most likely confidential information. It wouldn't benefit Portia if she knew. Portia glared at Demi hatefully, and then turned to leave. "You can say it now, Ms. Demi." Demi handed Chen Zhao the document she'd brought with her. "Mr. Chen, take a look at this." "What's this?" Chen Zhao didn't take it out immediately. Demi wasn't his friend. In fact, they were enemies. Who knew what the document was? "Remember the explosion on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain?" Demi said. "It was done by the people from Sarah's lab." Chen Zhao still didn't take out the document. Instead, he waited for Demi to continue. Demi's expression was calm. She hoped to see some change in Chen Zhao's expression. But Chen Zhao didn't move at all, as if this had nothing to do with him. In fact, it really had nothing to do with him. "I still don't understand. Mr. Chen, you were attacked by a super bomb last time. Don't you want revenge?" "I don't want to. I am a person who advocates peace and opposes violence. Not all losses can be solved with violence." Hearing that, Demi couldn't help but feel nauseous. Chen Zhao's words were really untrustworthy. "Mr. Chen, this isn't interesting at all." "Is that so? But I still don't understand. Miss Demi, why are you showing me this thing?" Demi was a bit annoyed by Chen Zhao's obvious question. However, there was no trust between them in the first place. Therefore, both sides held back from each other. Of course, Demi hoped that Chen Zhao would be overwhelmed by anger. Meanwhile, Chen Zhao was always on guard against Demi. Mr. Chen, I'll be straightforward. How about you and I work together to eradicate this Sarah lab? Nothing. Chen Zhao rejected Demi's suggestion. Why? This will benefit you as well. Benefits? I don't see any benefits. Demi took a deep breath and said, $10 million. Chen Zhao crossed his arms and didn't react at all. $15 million. $20 million. But Chen Zhao still didn't react. Mr. Chen, you'd better take a look at the documents I've brought. In the past 10 years, Sarah Lab has conducted a large number of illegal experiments. 10 years ago, there was a case of a large number of police officers going missing in Bakali. In one night, more than 50 police officers went missing. 3 years later, they were found buried in an abandoned mine. These 50 police officers all had one thing in common. They all took part in an operation. They once took down an organization that sold human organs. That organization was an external department of Sarah Lab. What does this have to do with me? All the signs show that Sarah Lab is a vengeful organization. They take revenge on those who were their enemies in the past, Demi said. Demi said, both you and I have fought them before, so I don't think Sala's laboratory will let you go. Chen Zhao frowned. He really didn't like Demi. He didn't like Demi, but he had to admit that Demi's words had hit his sore spot. Chen Zhao didn't like to guard against thieves day and night. You represent the military. Isn't the military enough to destroy Sarah Lab? Sarah Lab is in Mexico, in the middle of the desert near Bakali. No matter how powerful the military is, they can't send an army into Mexico. Since it's in Mexico, you have even less reason to attack, right? It's not in America anyway. No, they're a potential threat. We have to destroy them. Demi stared at Chen Zhao. Just like last time, you'll be hired as a special consultant for the military. Chen Zhao closed his eyes and leaned back, as if he was thinking about Demi's words. Mr. Chen, after this operation, we'll write off all our grudges. I won't make trouble for you in the future either. Chen Zhao had to admit that he was still a bit wary of Demi. After all, she was a mid-level general. Her hatred couldn't hurt Chen Zhao in any real way. But it didn't hurt him much. But the potential threat still existed. This was a problem Chen Zhao had to face. Seeing that Chen Zhao was wavering, Demi continued. Apart from that, I can also be your partner in the military. Of course, it's a private one. Chen Zhao was tempted, but he still hesitated. Why should I believe you? I can write a guarantee for you, Demi said. Demi said, if our relationship breaks down in the future, you can expose this guarantee. Chen Zhao was surprised. Demi's intentions were too obvious. She wanted to cooperate with him. She'd actually put his weakness in his hands. But Chen Zhao had to admit that he was really wavering this time. Demi was a potential stock in the military. If she could become his partner, it would only be good for him. Sure. As long as you're willing to write a guarantee, I'll agree to the cooperation. Chen Zhao finally made up his mind. I have another condition, Demi said. Chen Zhao frowned. What condition? Demi looked at Chen Zhao. I need you to promise me first, then I can tell you. How is that possible? Do I have to promise you even if you tell me to eat shit? My condition isn't difficult for you at all. In fact, it's insignificant. Chapter 1944. Even if they'd verbally agreed to cooperate. But Chen Zhao still wouldn't agree to Demi's strange request easily. Even if it was a verbal agreement, Chen Zhao wouldn't accept it if he wasn't sure. If you can't tell me your request first, I definitely won't agree. Demi took a deep breath. She was angry at Chen Zhao's stubbornness. He wasn't willing to expose even the slightest flaw. From the beginning to the end, Demi couldn't take the initiative. She could only wait for Chen Zhao's answer. On behalf of the military, I hope to pay you $30 million, not $20 million. Chen Zhao was stunned, but he quickly understood Demi's intentions. Even so, you won't get the money, right? Chen Zhao looked at Demi. Chen Zhao didn't care if Demi cooperated or not. In fact, he was more willing for her to do so. That way, Demi would give Chen Zhao even more leverage. If Demi's previous promise was only for her to lose her position and job, then what she did now would be illegal. Now what she did was illegal, and a felony. She would even be court-martialed. Demi looked at Chen Zhao with some mockery in her eyes. I really don't understand how you earned such a large fortune. Then tell me how you're going to get the money. I don't need you to transfer the money directly to my account. What I need is for you to open 2 anonymous overseas accounts and prepare them in advance. You don't need to wait for the military to transfer the money to your account before you carry out a series of operations. What's the point of that? If the military transfers the money to the account under your name, the military can track the account through financial channels and know the short-term flow of funds in your account. However, if you prepare the money in advance, the military can't track it. Of course, these 2 anonymous accounts will be handed to me after the money is in hand. That's a simple procedure, Demi said coolly. Chen Zhao got the gist of it. It was indeed very simple. But if he wanted to take the money, Demi wouldn't be able to do anything. This involved the issue of trust. Demi had suggested this mostly because she was confident in her own value. In this regard, Chen Zhao indeed wouldn't ruin his cooperation with Demi for $10 million. Chen Zhao didn't want to make a powerful enemy for $10 million. With this in hand, Demi would no longer be a threat. I never thought that the proud Miss Demi would have such an unknown side to her. Demi glanced at Chen Zhao. It's all because of you. Because of you, my father owes a lot of money. Some of it is from loan sharks. Most of it is to pay off the loan sharks. The rest is for my father to pay off his bank debt. Demi looked at Chen Zhao. Because Sonnenfeld had filed for bankruptcy protection, he didn't have to worry about his bank debt for the time being. But it also made his life extremely inconvenient. Sonnenfeld couldn't even have his own credit card. His credit rating in the bank had completely collapsed. In the United States, if one's credit went bankrupt, it would be hard for one to do anything. Although Demi was a mid-level general in the military, she was facing millions of dollars in debt. She was also powerless. It was precisely because of this that she decided to take the risk. Of course, she knew it was wrong to do so. But now, she had no other choice. She felt that she deserved it. This was no longer about right or wrong. If she didn't do this, she would lose her father. Chen Zhao laughed. He didn't feel guilty or regretful at all. Miss Demi, if you're willing to sign a contract to sell yourself, I'll be happy to help your father pay off his debt. Demi ignored Chen Zhao's words and pretended that she didn't hear anything. Was it that easy to sign a contract to sell herself? Her identity was so sensitive. If she really did sign a contract to sell herself, even if there wouldn't be any legal consequences, once it was exposed, she might be judged as a traitor. Of course, Chen Zhao was just saying it casually. He didn't really expect Demi to agree. After all, Demi wasn't at the end of her rope yet. The operation will start in a week. You should prepare. We need to do some preparations too. I'll participate too, Demi said. Oh, since you're the military's special consultant, you can give me some suggestions. It's best for your soldiers to wear portable weapons with strong penetration and incendiary bombs. Regular grenades won't be very effective. Also, your soldiers need to prepare protective clothing. Anything else? What I'm saying now is based on what I've seen on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain. However, the incident on the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain was caused by an attack by Sarah's laboratory. Sarah's laboratory itself is definitely more dangerous than the artificial island in Lake Pontchartrain. I know nothing about Sarah's laboratory, so I'm not sure what kind of danger we'll encounter. Also, if Sarah Lab uses a super bomb like last time, I won't be able to do anything. We'll all die together. Hearing that, Demi couldn't help but reveal a serious expression. After all, the explosion on Lake Pontchartrain's artificial island had left a deep impression on Demi. The artificial island had completely disappeared because of that, and a large portion of the Lake Pontchartrain bridge had also been destroyed. If we want to carry out this mission, the first thing we need to do is to be secretive, Chen Zhao said. We can't use military identities. All of us have to disguise ourselves as tourists. Also, the operation has to be completed in one night. We can't give them time to prepare. If the people from Sarah Lab find out that they've been targeted by the American military, they might abandon the lab and prepare a huge gift for us. Demi nodded. Chen Zhao's words made sense. But this way they couldn't hide the people they brought. After all, it would be too obvious if more than 100 burly Americans appeared in a collie. How does the military transport weapons to other countries? Chen Zhao asked. We have our own channels. We have arms dealers all over the world. As long as we provide them with what we need, they can prepare the weapons locally. We don't need to transport them. By the way, can I buy firearms if I want? No. Only the military can use those channels. Even I can't contact them. I can only send information and requests through the higher-ups in the military. Chapter 1945. Boss, why did that woman want to see you? After Demi left, Portia returned to Chen Zhao's side. Judging from their conversation, it didn't seem like they were talking about anything serious. However, when she saw Chen Zhao's smiling face, Portia suspected that Chen Zhao had earned money again. She remembered that when Demi came to Chen Zhao for help last time, she offered him $20 million. At that time, Chen Zhao had accepted it unwillingly. She didn't know that Chen Zhao must have earned a lot of money to be smiling so happily. Chen Zhao whistled and lay down on the chair. Portia, go get me some beer. Portia moved a box of beer to Chen Zhao. Boss, did you earn a lot of money again? Yeah. Then on account of my hard work, will you give me a raise? Chen Zhao glanced at Portia. Portia, you only see that I'm making money, but you don't see my expenses. My expenses are huge too, so don't think about getting a raise for the time being. Portia cursed Chen Zhao in her heart. The capitalist, the vampire. Just then, Felwood Cisco called again. It was time to check on the Mirror Lake Villa again. Felwood would call Chen Zhao 2 or 3 times a month. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't go every time. Felwood promised that he would do it before Christmas. Chen Zhao's family could move to their new home at Mirror Lake. Chen Zhao didn't force it though. He kept saying that he wasn't in a hurry. However, Felwood didn't stop working on Chen Zhao's project. To him, Chen Zhao was a huge financial backer. He'd even introduced Steven, a big client. Technically, Felwood still had to give Chen Zhao a commission, but he didn't dare to. He was afraid that Chen Zhao would think that he was insulting him. After all, he couldn't afford to give too much. If he gave too little, Chen Zhao wouldn't like it. Therefore, Felwood Cisco worked overtime on Chen Zhao's project and added more materials. Kids, get changed. We'll go see how the new house is. After Chen Zhao informed them, the children all changed into their outfits. When Portia and Chen Zhao's family arrived, the new house at Mirror Lake was already finished. The main project now was the renovation of the interior of the building, as well as the planting and transplanting of the external garden. When he entered the villa, he saw that some of the rooms in the villa had already been completed, while others were still being renovated. The number of workers in the construction site had decreased a lot, unlike the previous construction, when there were as many as hundreds of people. Mirror Lake's new home, in addition to the huge change in appearance, was also several times larger than before. If it was the villa in the past, although the design was not bad, the building area was too small. There were no more than 5 bedrooms, and the other messy rooms added up to a total of 11 or 12 rooms, including the number of bathrooms. It was only when he was at the Bright Moon Villa that he was able to correct himself. There were more than 15 bedrooms in the Mingyue Villa. Basically, every child would have a room. Now the new villa at Mirror Lake had more rooms, up to 30 rooms. The main body of the building was U-shaped. Half of it was in the lake, and the other half was on land. Moreover, every bedroom faced both the forest and Mirror Lake, which were illuminated. Chen Zhao was very satisfied with the design. Just then, a car entered the construction site. Hi, Chen. Ken alighted from the car. Chen Zhao walked up and gave Ken a hug. Why are you here? Dad heard that you're here, Ken said. He invited you and your children to our house. Are you sure? I have a lot of children. Don't worry, Ken said. My yard is big enough, although it can't compare to yours. Okay. Chen Zhao nodded. After inspecting the construction site, Chen Zhao brought the children to Bant's house. Mary. Chen Zhao went up and kissed her face. Are you home today too? Dell and Miss Fisher went out for 2 days, Mary said. They'll be back tomorrow. I've been home these days. Children, come here. This is your Aunt Mary. Aunt Mary, hello. Diddle greeted Mary first. What a cute girl. Mary and Bant both knew that Chen Zhao had adopted 8 children. Aunt Mary, I'm already grown up, Diddla protested. Okay, forgive my rudeness, but you're a beautiful girl, Mary said, smiling. Let me see. Is there one missing? Mary's gaze landed on Portia. Is it her? She's not my adopted child. She's my assistant. Chen Zhao glanced at Portia. Portia was also speechless. How did he look like a child? Where's Bant? He went out to buy alcohol. I drove here. It's not convenient for me to drink. It's okay. I won't let Ken drink. I'll have him drive you later. Mom, you're too much. You're moving out soon. Your father and I paid for the down payment for your new house. Do you think you can go against my orders now? Mom, Chen is still here. He has so many children. You should at least save some face for your son. If you have Chen's abilities, I won't say anything. Mary and Bant had watched Chen Zhao grow up bit by bit. From the very beginning, when he first arrived here, to now, when he was extremely wealthy. However, Mary and Bant always kept a certain distance from Chen Zhao. They were intimate but not pestered. They would occasionally invite Chen Zhao's family over for a meal. A while later, Bant returned and called Ken out to move the beer. Chen Zhao also came out and looked at Bant. Bant, why did you grow a beard? It looks like you've changed a lot. I can't help it. In the brewery, I didn't look imposing at all. But after I grew a beard, the kids became much more obedient. Which disobedient kid is it? I'll throw him into the sea to feed the sharks. Come on, the brewery is yours. But how many times have you been to the brewery? Let me count. Once when production started, once when the executives interviewed, and once during the last meeting. You've only been there 3 times in total. You're too irresponsible as a boss. This means that I trust the management of the brewery. Actually, Bant also knew about Chen Zhao's agreement with Denver. He was Chen Zhao's spy in the brewery. He was definitely one of Chen Zhao's people. Even if he said otherwise, no one would believe him. Chapter 1946. When Chen Zhao left, he didn't ask Ken to send him off. Instead, he forbade Portia from drinking and made her drive. Portia was already used to Chen Zhao's unscrupulous boss. Boss, I want next month's salary in advance, Portia said as she drove. I'm drunk now. I can't hear what you're saying. Boss, my house has no water and electricity. Do you want me to live in a primitive society? Portia planned to act pitiful in front of Chen Zhao. Last time, I asked if you wanted to borrow money. If you need it, I can lend it to you. But you rejected me. I don't want to borrow money now. I want my salary in advance. Is there a difference? Of course, Portia answered seriously. Portia answered seriously. If I borrow money, then I'll only owe more and more. But if I get my salary in advance, then the amount of money I owe won't increase. The American people were used to this sort of thing. Spending in advance, receiving in advance, and enjoying in advance. Before Chen Zhao could reply, Portia added, If you don't agree, I'll move to your house. Sure, Chen Zhao agreed readily. You can move here for half a month. I'm going on a business trip next week. You can move here and help me take care of the kids. You don't need me to follow you? No, I don't want to be a laborer, Portia wailed. I'm not your coolie. I'm highly educated. I should do something more meaningful. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes and said mercilessly, If you think you should do something more meaningful, you should be a volunteer. Portia, know your place. You're just a vain woman. Portia was speechless. You're just a vain woman. Boss, is this fun? Yes. You're so rich, Portia said earnestly. You should hire some servants. Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at Portia. To save money, he said matter-of-factly. Portia wanted to vomit blood. He earned tens of millions of dollars just to save some money? Wasn't that a bit too much? His one day's income was probably the lifetime income of a bunch of servants. Boss, you've gone too far. How about this? I'll advance your salary for next month. But you'll have to temporarily move into my house while I'm on a business trip. Fine. What else could Portia do? She had no right to choose at all. If she continued to bargain, with Chen Zhao's personality, he might not even get an advance on his salary. He directly ordered him to move in. Boss, do you really not need me to go with you? I'm going to Mexico, Mexicali, not some shopping city. Bacali? That place is not bad either. Cali is the capital of Baja California because of its proximity to the United States. Therefore, the export processing industry here is quite prosperous, and it has also attracted a large number of Americans to Cali for vacation. In addition to the unique scenery here, it was also because the prices here were quite low. Here, one could enjoy the treatment of a rich person with $1,000. With 10,000 USD, one could enjoy the treatment of an emperor here. The middle class in America loved to come here. Portia was tempted to tag along. She had always heard that Cali was a popular holiday spot. If they followed Chen Zhao, they would definitely spend a lot of money, given Chen Zhao's requirements for quality of life. On the other hand, she did not have to spend a single cent to enjoy the best quality of life. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao clearly would not agree to her request. After reaching home, Portia left. Of course, she still got an advance on her salary before leaving. Chen Zhao told Fei Lai at the dinner table, "Fei Lai, I'm going to Mexico's Mexicali next week." Mexicali? To play? Chen Zhao shook his head. "It's military work." "Uncle, I want to go too." "I want to go too." The children all looked at Chen Zhao with watery eyes. Not this time. Chen Zhao rejected the children's request decisively. "I'm not going to play. I'll let Portia stay here for a few days next week." "How many days are you going?" "I'm not sure. Maybe 3 or 4 days. I'll come back as soon as I'm done." "Okay. I'll bring the children to the coastal rescue team while you're gone." "That's okay. Portia can go. She can help a little." "Hi, I'm Portia." "Hi, I saw an ad on an agency website for sharing rentals. I heard that you're looking for a partner?" "Yes. Can I look at the house?" "Of course, but did you see the rent? It's at least 2,000. I need to look at the house first. If I'm satisfied, I'll accept the price." "When will you come to look at the house?" "Now. I'm in a hurry." "Sure. I don't have time during the day anyway." Portia didn't have money, but the house she was living in wasn't bad. It was a single-family villa in an upscale neighborhood. It was around 300 square meters. This was the house she'd found after getting Chen Zhao's job. At the time, she'd thought that her salary was enough to pay for the house. Later, she'd been short of money again, but she wasn't willing to move anymore. She wanted to find someone to share her house with. 30 minutes later, there was a knock on Portia's door. When Portia opened the door, she saw a very petite girl standing outside. The girl looked to be around 20 years old, but she was around 1.5 meters tall. I'm here to look at the house. I might be your partner." The girl wore a loose long-sleeved shirt and hid her hands in her pockets. Portia saw a sports car parked in front of the villa. It seemed that the girl was quite rich. "Please come in." Portia let the girl in. "I'm Zephra," the girl said. "I'm Portia." Zephra walked around the room. Portia introduced the houses to Zephra one by one. This house has 3 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. Of course, there's also a public bathroom. That's the living room. The kitchen is over there. Water, electricity, and gas are shared equally. "I don't cook at home," Zephra said. "Then I'll take care of your breakfast." "Okay." Zephra nodded. Zephra didn't realize that she'd fallen into Portia's trap. Or rather, she wasn't very sensitive to money. "My room is on the left," Portia said. "You can choose one of the other 2. I'm not home most of the time. Even on the weekends, I'm probably working for my stingy vampire boss." Chapter 1947. The entire rent for Portia's apartment was only $3,500. But Portia asked Riva for $2,000. Of course, Portia actually had room to bargain. But Zephra had no intention of bargaining. After looking at the apartment, Riva stuffed a stack of cash into Portia's hands. "Here's $2,000. Can I move in now?" You mean today?" "Yes, it's expensive to stay in a hotel," Riva said. "You're welcome." Portia finally smiled. Today was really a happy day. She'd just gotten next month's salary in advance from Chen Zhao. She didn't expect the empty room to be rented out too, and it was such a high price. "Can you help me move some things? Did you bring any luggage?" "It's in the car." "What luggage do you have in your sports car?" "A box of miscellaneous items and a box of clothes." When Portia followed Riva to the sports car, she realized that there was indeed very little luggage. Just as Portia was about to lift a box, Riva said, "You can't carry that box. You can carry the other one." Portia was immediately unhappy. She was at least 20 centimeters taller than Riva. Why could Riva carry it when she couldn't? As if she hadn't heard Riva, Portia reached for the box. But Portia felt like the box was filled with iron. She couldn't lift it at all. Portia tried again, and the box moved slightly. However, there was still a long way to go before he could take it out of the trunk. "What's in this box?" "Iron. Let me take this box." Riva walked over and lifted the box with one hand. Then she raised it slightly and put it on the ground. Portia's eyes almost fell to the ground. She could do that. Portia tried again. The other box. The other box was much easier. At least the second box was a normal weight. The first box, on the other hand, was at least 100 kilograms. This girl's strength was way too great. She could actually lift such a heavy box with one hand. "Do you have sheets and pillows? I can borrow them for one night." "Sure." Portia was generous. He helped Revla tidy up the room, and gave his pillows and sheets to Revla. Riva opened the heavy box. Portia saw that there were indeed a lot of things in the box. Moreover, the items were very complicated, and most of them were things that she could not recognize. "What are these things?" "My tool for work," Zephyr replied calmly. He took out the items from the boxes one by one, and arranged them neatly. Portia also came over and studied it for a long time, but she still had no clue. There was no way to figure out the uses of these things. "Is there anything to eat?" Zephyr asked after a while. "Yes, I'll go get some food." Portia had pizza in her fridge that was a few days old, but it was still edible after being reheated in the microwave. After taking 2 bites, Zephyr put the pizza back on the plate in disgust. "Is it not to your taste? Don't tell me that's what you serve for breakfast." Zephyr looked at Portia suspiciously. "Of course not. I just forgot to throw it away." In fact, Portia had been freeloading her meals at the Bright Moon Villa. "There are still fresh ingredients in the fridge, but my cooking skills are very average. You can make it yourself." Indeed, Zephyr went to the kitchen to cook. Portia looked at Zephyr's skillful cooking, and was a little stunned. Especially after she was done, Portia couldn't help but feel hungry as she looked at the food Zephyr cooked. Even though she had already had dinner at the Bright Moon Villa. But now, she felt a little hungry again. "Let's have some," Zephyr said. "Are you a chef?" Portia looked at the stir-fried meat with broccoli, picked up a knife and fork, and stabbed a piece of meat. Portia's eyes lit up as soon as it entered her mouth. Delicious. Stir-frying was rarely used in European and American cooking. It wasn't that it didn't exist, but it was very rare. "Are you a chef?" "No, cooking is just my hobby," Zephyr said. "And I can't treat myself badly after living alone for so long." "You're really good at cooking." "Thank you." Zephyr could tell that Portia wanted to eat too, so she made a lot of dishes. Portia didn't stand on ceremony, even though it was her own home. She felt like she was freeloading. "What's your job?" Portia asked curiously. "I'm a special consultant." "Special consultant? What kind?" "You probably don't have the chance to use me." "What about you? What do you do?" "I'm a private consultant for a rich man," Portia said. "But my dream is to be a star. Everyone in LA wants to be a star." Zephyr didn't find Portia's answer strange at all. "Except for rich people, such as my vampire boss." "Is your boss very strict with you?" "Of course. He's the most despicable, shameless, and stingiest man I've ever seen. You can't imagine how stingy he is. If that's the case, why don't you quit?" "He pays me well," Portia said. But she didn't think that she could find a job that could pay her $3,500 a week. She had a good education, but there were too many cases of people with good education living on the streets here. After all, $3,500 a week was higher than the average income of a middle-class family. Plus, Portia owed Chunjiao a lot of money. "Didn't you say that he's stingy?" "Yes, he's indeed stingy, but that doesn't stop him from paying me a high salary. It's all because of my ability, so he has to pay me." Portia clearly didn't want to continue talking about this. "Oh, you just arrived in LA?" "Yes, so I need to start my business as soon as possible." Zephyr nodded. "If you're willing to tell me what you do, maybe I can introduce you to a few clients." "Forget it. You can't help." Fine, it's fine if you don't want to. Portia could tell that Zephyr was intentionally avoiding the nature of her job. She didn't want to chase her new roommate away. But I think you should be a chef. Your food is really delicious. A chef doesn't make as much as my current income. You have a high income? Kind of. I'm also a high-income person. Zephyr smiled. Finance. The only possibility Portia could think of was finance. Chapter 1948. My job is more complicated. Zephyr was still perfunctory. Portia saw that Zephyr really didn't want to talk about it, so she gave up on asking. Knock, knock. Just then, a knock on the door interrupted the two women's conversation. I'll get the door. Portia jogged to the door and opened it. Two people stood outside. One of them was wearing a hat. Hello, are you Miss Portia? I am. Who are you? Portia was very sure that she didn't know the two people at the door. If you're here to sell insurance, our conversation ends here. No, we are not selling insurance. I am Peter, the person in charge of St. Finance Company. I heard that Miss Portia has been a little short on money recently. Our company has recently launched a loan product that can solve Miss Portia's current financial crisis, Peter said. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Portia rejected him without hesitation. She had studied finance in school. Of course, she also knew that there would be door-to-door financial products. Half of them were scammers, and the other half were loan sharks. Regardless of which one it was, Portia didn't want to come into contact with it. Portia was about to close the door when Peter blocked the gap with his foot. Miss Portia, the loan product we provide doesn't charge interest as long as it's within a specified time limit. Are you really not going to consider it? I know how your company operates very well. Portia smiled at Peter. There were three things in this world that absolutely should not be touched: gambling, drugs, and loan sharks. Any one of these three things could ruin a family. Loan sharks were even worse than the first two. There was at least a small chance of quitting gambling and drugs. However, loan sharks were often not something that the borrower could decide. Many people even became slaves to loan sharks for the rest of their lives, repaying money that could never be repaid. Loan sharks didn't charge interest if they paid the money within a specified time limit. Loan sharks didn't lie about that. However, the problem was that the time limit they gave was very short. Most people would borrow money from loan sharks because they were short of money. How could they pay back the money in a short period of time? Unless they suddenly won the lottery or inherited a large sum of money. However, most people wouldn't be so lucky. Therefore, in most cases, the result of the borrower was to exceed the time limit given by the loan sharks. Usually, the interest-free period given by the usury was 3 months. 3 months sounds like a long time. Most borrowers felt that borrowing money was an emergency. In fact, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to pay the money back. Every finance and economics teacher's first lecture was on how to identify illegal funds and how to avoid falling into debt traps. Moreover, when the teachers were teaching, they didn't use any technical content to explain. They were using real cases to illustrate the point. Moreover, every story ended with a cruel ending. Some of them wanted to treat their family members, while others wanted to do business to raise funds for emergencies. In short, there were all sorts of reasons for the emergency, but the result was that everything was ruined. Sir, please leave my house. Portia was not afraid of them. They might have a background in the underworld, but as long as he didn't owe them money, they couldn't do anything to him. Although usury was an illegal business, they still needed to be trustworthy. In this respect, he was similar to most businessmen. It was impossible for them to force others to borrow money. Peter could only take back his foot. Miss Portia, this is my name card. If you need it, you can call me anytime. We can also talk about the interest-free period. Portia looked like she was 1,000 miles away. She didn't even take the name card. If I need money, I can borrow money anytime. My boss's interest is much lower than yours. Also, he's much richer than you. Portia wasn't lying. Chen Zhao was indeed willing to lend her money, and he could borrow as much as he wanted. As for the safety issue, Chen Zhao only wanted the same interest from the bank. Portia was obviously more willing to trust Chen Zhao, not the infamous usury. In fact, there were many ways to calculate interest from usury. There were too many traps in their contracts. I wonder who Miss Portia's boss is. Can you introduce him to me? Peter's expression was dark. He had misunderstood Portia's words. He thought that Portia's boss was also a usury. Los Angeles had always been Saint in Finance's territory. Portia saying that Chen Zhao was richer sounded more like a provocation to Peter. Aren't you very resourceful? You can investigate it yourself. Let's go. Peter left with a dark expression. Portia closed the door. Suddenly, Zephyr's voice came from behind. Your words might bring trouble to you and your boss. Ah, why did you suddenly appear behind me? You scared me. Portia patted her chest. She also regretted talking too much. Those usually weren't kind people. They wouldn't really cause trouble for Chen Zhao because of this, right? Boss, we might have a competitor in LA. Competitor? What organization dares to compete with US in LA? I don't know. I need to investigate, Peter said. Pete said. It was originally a potential customer, but this potential customer said that her boss also gives loans, and the interest is much lower than ours. This was Peter's occupational disease. In fact, private loans and usury were two different things. But Peter didn't care. He felt that those who borrowed money were all usury. In fact, everyone in this industry thought the same. Give me this person's information. I'll investigate. Portia, huh? This person works for a law firm. Strange, the owner isn't rich. She probably doesn't have the money to provide loans. The person on the other end paused. Suddenly she said, all the lawyers in this law firm seem to be Chen Zhao's private lawyer. Chen's private lawyer? What does he need so many lawyers for? Boss, he must be avoiding legal trouble. If he's just a normal person, why does he need so many lawyers? It must be him. That makes sense. The boss thought for a moment and said, go contact him. If he's willing to compensate and leave LA, we'll forget about this. What if he's not willing? It's up to you. Do what you think is right. Boss, I understand. I'll give you a satisfactory answer. Chapter 1949. Saint & Finance Company was a very famous finance company in North America. It could often be seen on Wall Street. Moreover, Saint & Finance Company also had another unknown business, which was usury. Not everyone had access to the Saint & Finance Company. Their clients were mainly those with a certain ability to make money. Due to various reasons, their finances were in a short period of time. At this time, Sheng'an would actively contact them. Saint & Finance Company had a very long history. It appeared along with the history of the United States, and grew together with the strength of the United States. In the history of Saint & Finance, there had been several usurpations of power. But in the end, they all ended in failure. No matter how meticulous the subordinates' plans were, they could not escape the fate of failure. Rumor had it that Saint & Finance Company was in charge of a Black Hand family. When there was an uncontrollable internal situation, the mafia family would appear. Of course, this situation would not happen again in recent years. Sheng'an Tower was a brand new building. It was also the tallest building in Los Angeles. It had only been completed in May. From the name, it was obvious that it belonged to Sheng'an Finance. Sheng'an liked the feeling of overlooking Los Angeles from the top. Just then, a figure appeared behind Sheng'an. Sheng'an frowned. Don't suddenly appear behind me. I hate people who come uninvited. Brother, do you hate your sister that much? A young girl appeared behind Sheng'an. You're a villain wanted by the entire spiritual world. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Sheng'an's attitude was as if he was 1,000 miles away. The girl licked her lips. I'm here to borrow some money from you. Sheng'an frowned. Impossible. Don't be so sure. I have information that you're interested in. There are many things that I'm interested in. What can you give me? Treasure Island, the girl said. I don't believe you. Sheng'an glanced at his sister. He knew his little sister very well. She was ranked 5th on the spiritual world's top 10 villains. All the negative comments from humans applied to her. The crimes she had committed were too numerous to list. Even though Sheng'an didn't think of himself as a good person, but compared to his younger sister, he was simply a kind little angel. Big brother, you're hurting my heart. Cui Xian had a heartbroken expression. Your arrival will only bring me big trouble. Those spiritualists are like hunting dogs attracted by you. I hate this feeling. So, if you don't want me to kill you personally, you'd better leave this place immediately. Leave Los Angeles, Shungen said calmly. Moreover, your bounty seems to have increased again. As for killing his sister, Cui Siin, Shungen did not feel guilty at all. Of course, if a war really broke out between them, Shungen wasn't absolutely confident. After all, he was facing one of the 10 heinous disciples' calamity. Shungen, I'm here to make a deal with you. Cui Siin's tone suddenly became low. I'm also very serious. I hate you. Cui Siin, get out of my territory. Humph. I'm sure you'll find me again. With that, Cui Siin suddenly broke through the floor-to-ceiling glass wall and disappeared into the night. Shungen grinned. Damn you. This floor-to-ceiling window costs more than $100,000. The weather was not good today. The sea breeze was rather strong. The sky was dark, and it seemed like it would rain at any time. The waves were also a little big, so the children stayed at home and didn't go out to play. Portia, what's making you so happy? Is it because I gave you next month's salary in advance yesterday? I found a roommate, Portia said. My new roommate is paying me $2,000 a month. I remember that your house is only a little more than $3,000 a month. My roommate isn't as stingy as you. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, her face full of disdain. You better be careful with your words. Be careful, or I'll make you pay me now. The terrible weather made Chen Zhao feel rather depressed. He wasn't afraid of the waves, but he was afraid of giving a bad example to the children. After all, he was still swimming in such a storm. The children would think that if Chen Zhao wasn't afraid, they wouldn't be afraid either. Chen Zhao would occasionally ask Wright for advice. Wright was an education expert. She wasn't just the principal of a university. She had been a teacher for many years, including elementary schools, middle schools, universities, and even kindergartens and early childhood classes. Wright had told Chen Zhao that children would learn from adults. Even adults would learn some of their parents' habits. Not to mention children who hadn't fully matured. Therefore, adults definitely couldn't give children the wrong example. Just then, two unfamiliar commercial vehicles entered the entrance of the Mingyue villa. Chen Zhao received the message from the butler system and couldn't help but frown. The butler system couldn't find the identity of the owners of the two cars. Chen Zhao walked out of the house and saw 10 people in black suits get out of the two cars. The leader was a man with a small mustache and an uncomfortable fake smile. Hello, you must be Mr. Chen? Peter walked up and extended his hand. Chen Zhao didn't extend it. He put his hands in his pockets and looked at Peter coldly. Do I know you? Then let me introduce myself. I'm the person in charge of Saint and Finance Company. My name is Peter. Oh, what can I do for you? I heard that Mr. Chen has the same business as us, Peter said with a faint smile. With a faint smile, Peter said, I don't think the market in Los Angeles is big, and the economic environment in the past 2 years is not optimistic, so I think Mr. Chen should go to other places to do business. Los Angeles can't accommodate more people in the same industry. Of course, we will give you a satisfactory price for your business and channels in Los Angeles. Then what's your price? Chen Zhao's expression was as cold as usual. $1 million. I think Mr. Chen will give us face, right? Slap. Chen Zhao casually slapped Peter. Go back to where you came from. Peter was stunned by Chen Zhao's slap. You dare to hit me? Peter covered his face and stared at Chen Zhao in disbelief. You came to my house to blackmail me. Shouldn't I hit you? Chen Zhao glanced at the people Peter had brought and said coldly, Whoever dares to draw a gun in my house will die here today. Do it. Kill him for me. Pete had never been humiliated like this. Chapter 1950. The moment the first man took out his gun, Chen had already punched him in the chest. Everyone saw that the chest of the man in black had caved in. Then, he fell to the ground and thick blood seeped out of his mouth. The other men instinctively took out their guns. Chen grabbed a man's neck and used only a bit of strength. The man's neck was completely broken. Chen Yu suddenly stopped killing and looked at his hands in confusion. Weird, why did I lose control of my emotions? Chen asked himself. The other men all pointed their guns at Chen. Chen glanced at the men in black. That emotion surged up again. I'll count to 3. Put down your guns. It's for your own good. Chun controlled his emotions. Weird, something was affecting his emotions. Was it these people? No, there wasn't anything about them that made him feel strange. They were just ordinary people. The black-clothed men were also frightened. They'd never seen someone like Chun who would kill people without a word. This made them very nervous, and they didn't dare to put down their guns. Suddenly, a man in black loaded a gun. But the sound of the gun being loaded stimulated Chun again. Jen instantly appeared in front of the black-clothed man. He reached out and twisted his head. The black-clothed man slowly fell in front of Jen. Chun looked at Peter. Who told you to come? And my boss. Call him here, Chun said coldly. Chun vaguely sensed that the weather seemed to have affected his emotions. No, it couldn't be considered an influence. It was more like magnifying his emotions. Peter looked at Chun hesitantly. Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who our boss is? Chun closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying his best to control his emotions. Cut the crap. Chun wasn't interested in listening to Peter explain who his boss was. Chun didn't like this feeling. Logically speaking, Chun's spiritual power should be immune to this kind of spiritual spell. But reality wasn't like that. Chun didn't know who had cast the spell, but the spell had indeed affected him. Maybe I should get someone else to contact your boss, Jen said murderously. Just then Portia poked her head out. She saw the dead men on the ground. Chun turned to look at Portia. Portia was shocked. She had never seen Chen's face like this. Portia, close the door and don't let the children out. Portia immediately closed the door with a grave expression. Fortunately, although Jen lost control of his emotions, he didn't lose his mind. Hurry up, my patience is running out. Pete picked up the phone. He could feel it. Chen was not joking with him. Peter dialed Saint Anne's number with trepidation. Boss, I'm in trouble. What kind of trouble? He's in the police station? No. I'm at Mingyue Villa on the coast road. I'm at the house of our colleague. He said he wanted to talk to you face to face. Didn't you tell him my identity? Just then Jin picked up the phone. I don't know who you are, but I hate stupidity. Either you come over yourself, or I'll kill all your subordinates, and then go find you. Do you know what you're saying? Do you know who I am? You and your men seem to only know how to make empty threats. Fine, I'll find you and go myself. Don't regret it. Saint Anne was also furious. No one had ever dared to talk to him like this. Saint Anne had never been so furious. But very soon Saint Anne sobered up. Saint Anne shook his head heavily, and forced himself to calm down. Damn, that damn Chui Si. She released her territory. What does she want? Although Saint Anne had calmed down, he still decided to meet the man who dared to threaten him. Jen stood there. He didn't even dare to return to the house. These emotions came in waves. The suppressed anger would be reignited in the next moment. Pete and the people he brought were in great pain. Even though they had guns in their hands, they still felt immense pressure. It seemed that the person standing before them wasn't a human. Rather, it was a ferocious beast. Jen looked up at the sky. The dark clouds didn't look like magic. It was more like someone's territory. Jen wanted to see what effect this territory had on him. Suddenly, he discovered that the immortal power in him was very active. It was this activity that amplified his manic emotions. With his immortal power, no matter how high his mental power was, he couldn't control his emotions. In other words, this territory was a trigger. What was really affecting him was his immortal power. No wonder. Jen was dazed. Who exactly did this territory belong to? Or was it a person? He had to control his immortal power and his power. Finally, he had to control his emotions. To control his immortal power, he first had to understand what was causing it to be so active. However, Chen Zhao soon discovered that by using his own domain to block this unfamiliar domain, he could directly block the influence of this domain. He didn't know who released this territory, but it was undeniably powerful. It covered all of Los Angeles. Even the surrounding areas like Mingyue Villa couldn't avoid it. Moreover, this territory could affect all the spiritualists in the city. Even the surrounding areas like Mingyue Villa couldn't avoid it. Ordinary people didn't have magic or immortal power, so they weren't affected. Or people like Jen, who had a territory, couldn't be affected either. But spiritualists who were above ordinary people couldn't avoid it. This territory was silent and almost undetectable. If it wasn't for the people from Sheng'an's finance company provoking him, Zhen still couldn't discover the territory's influence on him. Before, he'd only been a bit irritated. Only when facing these people did he realize that he could start a massacre. Suddenly, a surge of power descended from the sky. A figure descended from the sky. Sheng'an was wearing a Superman costume and looking down at Zhen. Zhen was stunned. Peter and the men in black he'd brought were all stunned. They stared at Sheng'an in shock. Sheng'an just floated in the air. He gave off the illusion that he was really Superman. "Are you the one who wants to see me?" Sainton asked in an arrogant tone as he looked at Zhen. Chapter 1951. Sheng'an had been enjoying this process. But all of this was ruined by Chen Zhao's words. Peter and the others were shocked by Sheng'an's unbelievable actions. Their boss could fly. He was really flying. Was he really Superman? Sheng'an suddenly charged at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao stood there and reached out to grab Sheng'an, who happened to be charging over. He pinched Sheng'an's face with one hand and moved closer. "You're not human. What are you?" Sheng'an struggled with all his might. His strength was equally shocking, but he couldn't break free from Chen Zhao's grasp. This shocked him greatly. A human definitely couldn't defeat him in strength. Not only did Chen Zhao's strength not weaken, but it also grew stronger. Chen Zhao was also shocked. Sheng'an's resistance wasn't weak. It was at least tens of thousands of tons of strength. At this moment, Sheng'an could already feel that he was indeed inferior in terms of strength. So he had to use his trump card. Sheng'an's strength skyrocketed. Moreover, his body started transforming in an inhuman way. At the same time, his body exuded a terrifying sense of oppression. Dragon aura? Dragon? Chen Zhao looked at Sheng'an in shock. The strength in his hand suddenly increased. Chen Zhao almost crushed Sheng'an's skull. Sheng'an's transformation was forcefully interrupted. He immediately returned to his human form. Peter and the others were scared out of their wits. What just happened? Just now, Sheng'an had displayed a part of his dragon form. In their eyes, it was completely beyond their comprehension. Suddenly, Chen Zhao's hand loosened. He grabbed nothing. Sheng'an's body shrunk rapidly until he was only the size of a fist. At the same time, he used this opportunity to escape. Soon, Sheng'an's body returned to his dragon form. But he didn't. He was still the size of a fist. Bang! Chen Zhao was sent flying. He really couldn't defend against Sheng'an's move. Sheng'an wasn't as strong as him, but the shrinking spell didn't weaken him at all. He was still terrifying. Moreover, his shrunken body also made it harder for him to be captured and attacked. Sheng'an's body was very small, but his aura was terrifying. Dragon aura enveloped the entire Mingyue villa. Under the dragon's might, Chen Zhao's children all fell into panic. Chen Zhao was furious again. He glared at Sheng'an. "I'm going to kill you." Chen Zhao used his strongest form, clone. All techniques returned to one, dark assimilation. "I have power, mighty god." Sheng'an felt uneasy. There was no aura on Chen Zhao, but Chen Zhao was a huge threat to him. Moreover, Chen Zhao was absorbing and controlling the power of the world. Even if Chen Zhao didn't go into his strongest form, he was still stronger than Sheng'an. However, Sainton was too small. In addition, Chen Zhao did not have an advantage in terms of speed. Therefore, he needed to gain an advantage in speed as well. The next moment, Chen Zhao suddenly appeared before Sheng'an. Without any hesitation, a fist shadow with terrifying killing intent blasted Sheng'an's body. Sheng'an's body was sent flying like a cannonball. Bang! The Holian crashed into the sea, causing huge waves to surge up into the sky. However, the moment he crashed into the sea, Sheng'an's aura disappeared. Dead? No, he escaped. Chen Zhao's expression was extremely dark. The small world enveloped the nearby sea. Sheng'an could not be found at all. However, Chen Zhao did not plan to let Sheng'an go. Instead, he returned to the shore and looked at the frightened people. Chen Zhao killed all the men in black. Only Pete was left. Peter was trembling in fear. He looked at Chen Zhao, whose hands were covered in blood. Pete almost peed his pants in fear. He felt that he had accidentally gotten himself involved in a terrible battle. Chen Zhao waved his hand lightly. Dark lava spread out from under his feet. Then it devoured the corpses. Chen Zhao looked at Pete. Where does your boss live? Sheng'an kept vomiting blood and ran home with difficulty. No one knew this place. It was also his hiding place. However, the moment he ran back, he felt a familiar aura. Cui Xin, how do you know this place? Sheng'an wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. Cui Xin looked at Sheng'an in shock. Who beat you up like this? Sheng'an's appearance was too pitiful. Cui Xin and Sheng'an had been siblings for 400 years, but she had never seen her brother so pitiful. After all, Sheng'an had always been stronger than her. There was a limit to how strong he could be, but he was still strong. Cui Xin knew very well that if they fought with their lives, Sheng'an's chances of winning were more than 80%. But now, Sheng'an was heavily injured. Sheng'an was now half human, half dragon. He should have had a pair of dragon horns, but only one was left. One of his arms was broken and hung before him. His body was covered in blood. Sainton looked at Cui Xian with a cold look in his eyes. Go away. Otherwise, I won't go easy on you. My dear brother, do you think you can beat me now? Cui Xian smiled at Sheng'an. Yes, I can't beat you now, but the person who injured me can. If he can beat me up like this, he can beat you up too, Sheng'an said coldly. If you don't want to leave, then we'll die together. I'll lure that dragon slayer over. Hearing the words dragon slayer, Cui Xian's expression changed. Dragon slayers, as the name suggested, were people who slayed dragons. And the person who had been chasing her was a dragon slayer. Since when did a dragon slayer appear, who could injure you so badly? Cui Xian's tone was solemn. Dragon slayers rarely fought against evil dragons alone. After all, the power of an adult dragon was not something that one or two people could fight alone. Unless it was the top existence among the humans. But those few wouldn't attack the dragon race. Unless the dragon race went overboard. But from what Sheng'an said, it seemed like he was beaten up by a single person. This made Cui Xian's heart sound alarms. After all, Sheng'an wasn't an evil dragon. But she was a real evil dragon. If the dragon slayer were to encounter her, the dragon slayer would definitely not let her go. Even if we work together, we won't be a match for that dragon slayer? I don't know, but I can't fight back against him. Sheng'an coughed up another mouthful of blood. Cui Xian looked at Sheng'an, her eyes flickering. Brother, take out your treasures and recruit our people, Cui Xian said. Don't even think about it. Sheng'an roared hysterically. He was a dragon, a greedy one. Chapter 1952. Just like the legend said, dragons were greedy. Sheng'an was like that, and so was Cui Xian. However, Cui Xian was an evil dragon. She had no time to collect her treasures. Her life. No, it should be the life of a dragon. She had spent her entire life on the run. But Sheng'an was different. He had never been defined as an evil dragon. In the agreement between dragons and humans, if a dragon was defined as an evil dragon, then humans were allowed to kill it. Of course, whether or not they could kill it was up to the humans. That was why the group of dragon slayers, or rather, a profession, was born among humans. Their mission was to kill and slay dragons. How to define an evil dragon? That was the result of mutual discussion between humans and dragons. Sheng'an and Cui Xian were two typical examples. Although what Sheng'an did was illegal, it was still within the rules of humans. He did not actively use his abilities. Even if he was punished by human law, he could not use the power of the dragon race to harm humans. The only thing he could do was to run away. But Cui Xian was different. Almost all of her actions went against the agreement between dragons and humans. She did not care about the agreement or the rules. To her, humans were weaklings. That was why her actions became more and more unscrupulous. That was why she became one of the top 10 villains of the supernatural world. She was ranked 5th, and had the title of Calamity. And among the dragon race, she was not the only evil dragon. There were quite a lot of evil dragons who were wanted. That was why if Sheng'an was willing to take out his wealth, he would definitely be able to recruit many evil dragons. However, as a greedy dragon, Sheng'an had accumulated hundreds of years of wealth. The greed of the dragon race for wealth was unimaginable to humans. No matter how greedy humans were, they would pass on their wealth to their descendants before they died. But there was no such thing as inheritance in the dragon race. Even if the dragon clan were to die, they would still tightly hold on to their wealth. They would definitely bring their wealth into their coffins. There were also dragons who would die in their own treasure troves, letting their corpses and treasures be buried together forever. Who knew how many dragon race legacies were hidden all over the world? Shungen was the same, or even more ridiculous. Even in the face of death, he would not give up on his wealth. Recruiting evil dragons of the same race? With the greed of the dragon race, how much money would it take to satisfy the appetite of those evil dragons? He would probably have to contribute all the wealth he had accumulated over hundreds of years. If he had to take out all his wealth, he might as well just kill him. I've long known that you're here for my treasures. Don't even think about it. Don't ever think about it. Shungen gritted his teeth as he glared at Cui Xiyin. Cui Xiyin also looked at Shungen with hatred in her eyes. You're so heavily injured, but you still came here. It's because your treasure is hidden here, you miser. Chen Zhao didn't have high hopes. However, when he arrived at the Shungen building, he did not find Shungen, which made him very disappointed. Peter stood behind Chen Zhao trembling. Panic was written all over his face. Chen Zhao's mood worsened. Peter saw Chen Zhao punch through a load-bearing wall. If that terrifying power were to land on his body, he would definitely die. Half of his body would probably be smashed into smithereens. Does your boss have any other hiding places? Chen Zhao asked. I don't know. Peter was trembling all over. Facing Chen Zhao, he felt too much pressure. Chen Zhao was like a mountain that hung over his heart. Chen Zhao didn't expect a dragon to be hiding in the L.A. area. Shungen was also very powerful. Out of all the enemies Chen Zhao had met, Shungen was definitely in the top 5. The first was of course Tamamo no Mei. The second was the son of Element, Amanda Didier. Shungen was actually about as powerful as the dragon Chen Zhao had met on the 9th level of the Tower of Trials. But this was the power of the dragon race. However, Shungen was much more powerful than that. Shungen also had powerful magic. For example, he could shrink himself, so that it was harder to hit and deal with him. Imagine a giant dragon's body, shrinking to the size of a fist, under the condition that its strength did not change. What would the consequences be? It was almost undefeatable. His ability to escape was also unparalleled. At least, Chen Zhao still didn't know how Shungen had escaped. What kind of magic did he use to escape? When Chen Zhao returned to Mingyue Villa, Fei Lai was already there. Chen, I heard that you killed a few people at your house today? Fei Lai asked. Portia said that. You should be careful. No matter what, killing people at home is too bad of an influence. It's my fault. Chen Zhao didn't argue. Portia, it's me. Portia received Chen Zhao's call. Today wasn't a pleasant experience for Portia. She knew that Chen Zhao would kill people. She'd also seen him do it. However, someone had attacked Chen Zhao first. Chen Zhao was forced to fight back. However, she didn't know what exactly had happened today. She didn't see Peter clearly. She didn't know that she was the one who'd caused all this. How are you? I'm fine. Boss, who were those people? Bad people. Chen Zhao didn't plan on explaining anything to Portia either. He didn't feel like he had to. He was the boss, not Portia's subordinate. If Portia couldn't accept it, she could leave. If today's loss affects you in any way, I can give you a few days to rest. Okay, I understand. She indeed needed to calm down now. After all, the scene was too shocking for her. As soon as she hung up, Portia heard the door open. Zephyr was back. When she saw Portia, she was a bit surprised. Portia, did something happen to you today? You look really pale. I saw my boss kill someone, Portia said. You saw your boss kill someone? Was he going to silence you? No. Then why didn't you call the police? Those people broke into his house with guns, Portia said. He had enough reason to kill them. Really? So your boss didn't kill you? If he wanted to kill me, he would have done it in my house. There's no need to wait until now. You can set my number as an emergency number. If you're in danger, I might be able to help. Okay, let's not talk about this. You'll cook dinner tonight. Chapter 1953. Portia was waiting for Riva to make dinner in the living room. Because of the fright, Portia did not have the time to have dinner at Mingyue Villa. Just then, Riva's phone on the living room table rang. Portia saw the name on the screen, Dragon Slayer Alux. Riva, you're on the phone, Portia called. Riva quickly ran out to pick up the phone. Riva, it's me, Alux. We found traces of the Calamity Chui Siin. She appeared at the magic store today and bought a lot of potions and raw materials. It seems that she's injured. Are you sure she's in the city now? Yes, we've set up a detection magic array around Los Angeles. If a dragon goes in or out, we'll be able to detect it. Okay, got it. Contact me immediately if there's any news, Riva said. After Riva hung up, Portia came up to her. Riva, are you playing a game? Riva looked at Portia and nodded after a moment of silence. Yes, I knew it. Portia nodded confidently. What game are you playing with your friend? Oh, the vegetables in the pot are burnt. Riva suddenly ran to the kitchen in a panic. While they were eating dinner, Refra called again. Portia, I'm going out tonight. Now. It's so late. Will it be dangerous for you to go out alone? Portia looked at Riva with concern. Why do you have to go out now? Can't you go out tomorrow? In America, going out at night had always been a dangerous thing. 80% of criminal cases happened at night. This was not China. Even if a girl lay on the street for a night, nothing would happen. It was more likely that the person who was found would call the police. It's urgent. Riva stopped eating and went back to her room to clean up. Before leaving, she carried a suitcase. Riva drove the car to the front of a forest. Just then another person came. It was Alux. Alux carried a pair of axes on his back. He was tall and strong. He was wearing a small vest and military boots. He looked very heroic. However, when talking to Riva, Alux was obviously talking to her in a subordinate tone. Zafra, you came so fast. What did you find here? Zephyr asked. We detected a huge energy reaction here. As dragon slayers, each of them carried some kind of apparatus with them. It could detect energy reactions within a certain range. Of course, this kind of detection device could only work on high-energy reactions. Most of the evil dragons they hunted were extremely vicious and powerful. However, the range of this detection device was only 10 kilometers. A diameter of 10 kilometers was neither too big nor too small. Just the two of us? Zephyr asked. If Chui Siin the Calamity hadn't left, the two of us dragon slayers would have become her food. The others are also rushing over. There were far more dragon slayers in Los Angeles than the two of them. There were a total of 12 dragon slayers, and their leader was the seemingly young Zafra. Their group of dragon slayers had successfully killed an evil dragon. Hunting down an evil dragon was not a problem that could be solved with just 1 or 2 battles. Both sides needed to compete for a long time. In terms of pure strength, the evil dragon was undoubtedly the stronger side. However, humans were good at using all kinds of conditions and traps. Not every dragon slayer group could succeed. However, the advantage of the dragon slayers was in numbers. If one group was destroyed, another group would take over. Perhaps 10, 20, 50 years, or even 100 years was possible in order to hunt down an evil dragon. Zephyr could lead a group to kill an evil dragon. Apart from her outstanding leadership skills, it also showed that her group was strong enough. Zephyr would not undervalue herself, but she would not be arrogant either. Against any evil dragon, one could not be careless or underestimate the enemy. No matter what, the dragon slayers would always be at a disadvantage. Their only advantage was their cautiousness and perseverance. Evil dragons would get tired of carrying around after a long escape, but the dragon slayers would not. The dragon slayers were born with a lot of extraordinary experiences and training. Whether it was the spirit or the body, they had already surpassed ordinary people. From the firearms and magical equipment of humans to their own combat magic, they were all top-notch existences. Zephyr and Alux entered the forest. In the rugged mountain road, the two still walked as if they were flying, as if they were walking on flat ground. This kind of environment was not even a regular test for the two of them. The harsh environment they had experienced was the limit of humans. Just then Zephyr suddenly stopped. Alux looked at Zephyr and asked, "What's wrong? Did you find anything? Did you find anything special about this environment?" Alux frowned and looked around. This place is surrounded by mountains, and faces the sea in the southwest. It's an excellent place to grow dragon heart grass. That's right. Zephyr nodded. This is probably a place where dragons grow dragon heart grass. And it's not Calamity Chui Siin. It's probably another dragon. You're saying that there's a second dragon in the Los Angeles area? Dragon heartgrass is a magic herb used by dragons to heal themselves, and Calamity Chui Siin bought a lot of potions from magic stores. But she did not fight with us in Los Angeles, so it's not that she was injured. It's very likely that another dragon in the Los Angeles area was injured, so she came out to collect healing potions and magic herbs. If that's the case, we're in trouble. It's already very difficult for us to deal with Calamity Chui Siin, and now we have to deal with a second dragon. We have almost no chance of winning. But think about it carefully. Who was the one who injured the second dragon? Who? Alex was not good at using his brain. His strength was similar to Zephyr's. But in terms of leadership, action planning, and intelligence analysis, he was far inferior to Zephyr. That was why Zephyr was the leader of the small team, not Alex. There are three possibilities. One is that the dragons are fighting among themselves, but Chui Siin will take the initiative to find healing materials and potions, so the possibility is very low. The other is that there's another Dragon Slayer team in Los Angeles that is not weaker than us. This is the most likely possibility. What about the third possibility? Chapter 1954. We're in contact with most of the Dragon Slayer teams. If other teams come to Los Angeles, they'll probably inform us. So if it's not the first two possibilities, there's also a possibility that there's a powerful spiritualist or individual in Los Angeles. This possibility is the lowest. After all, in the spiritual world, the only two people who are confident in going against an adult dragon are the Scarlet Church's 23rd generation Blood Mary and Wuxia's Dragon Tiger Mountains Celestial Master Sex Zhang Tianyi. Zephyr analyzed. But they wouldn't come to Los Angeles for no reason, and come here without a trace. Of course, if it's the second possibility, maybe the Dragon Slayer team sneaked in to cover up. Being a Dragon Slayer was a high-risk industry, so it was understandable that there would be confidentiality measures. Just then, the two found a huge claw mark on the ground. It's here. Zephyr stood in front of the mark. Alex squatted down and examined the huge mark. There was an irregular hole in the center of the mark. Something seemed to have been pulled out. From the marks, it's Calamity Chui Siin. The dragon heart grass was pulled out from here. The dragon heart grass was like grass to the dragon clan. But to humans, it was a big tree. Because the situation was unclear, Zephyr felt complicated. She didn't know if it was good or bad. There was one more dragon on their mission list. If two dragons came together, a single Dragon Slayer team wouldn't be able to deal with them. But if there was another Dragon Slayer team in Los Angeles, and one that could seriously injure a dragon, that would definitely be a powerful reinforcement. Let's go. The two were about to leave. Suddenly, Zephyr and Alexa's equipment sounded alarms. Not good, something's coming. Use Shadow Cloak immediately. Shadow Cloak was used to hide all of one's aura and traces. It was mainly used to prevent the dragon's perception. Because the dragon's perception was too sharp and powerful, there was almost no chance of winning in a head-on fight. In most cases, a Dragon Slayer's first attack would be a sneak attack. Therefore, Shadow Cloak was very important. Shadow Cloak not only hid one's aura, but also all of the user's perception. This was one of the flaws of the Shadow Cloak. Normally, when a Dragon Slayer fought an evil dragon, he would lie in ambush at a predetermined location. They had no way of knowing whether the evil dragon had arrived or not, so they had to wait for others to send a signal. There were only two of them at this moment, and they weren't prepared at all. Be it in terms of equipment or mentality, they were not prepared. There was absolutely no chance of winning against the evil dragon at this time. That was why Zephyr immediately gave the order to hide with Shadow Cloak. The moment they disappeared, Chen Zhao descended from the sky. Chen Zhao saw the huge claw mark. Without a doubt, this claw mark was left behind by the Dragon Clan. Chen Zhao couldn't tell if it was Saint Anne's claw mark. However, he naturally thought that the claw mark was left by Saint Anne. Am I too late? Chen Zhao's expression was ugly. There was some dragon aura left at the scene. That kind of powerful enemy would be a huge problem if they were allowed to live for another day. Therefore, Chen Zhao searched through the night. He wanted to find Sheng'an as soon as possible and kill him. According to Peter's investigation, this mountain forest was a property under Saint Anne's name. Tonight, Chen Zhao had searched many of Saint Anne's properties, but he couldn't find any trace of Saint Anne. Chen Zhao would have to leave in a few days. If Saint Anne came back for revenge when he wasn't here, how would his family defend? Chen Zhao's bad mood was magnified again. Looking at the forest before him, Chen Zhao destroyed it wantonly. The huge shadow of a fist smashed down with the power of the world. The terrifying shockwave directly uprooted the ground and trees in the vicinity. After the attack, Chen Zhao finally controlled his emotions and flew away. This unknown territory was really troublesome. If he wasn't careful, he would be affected by it. Chen Zhao didn't realize that his attack just now had exposed two figures from the shadows. However, the terrifying impact still seriously injured Zephyra and Alux. Their minds were a bit dazed. They couldn't find the dragon anymore. That saved them from the disaster. However, this terrifying power still shocked them, and even frightened them. This definitely wasn't Calamity Cui Xian. It was probably a higher-level dragon. They didn't understand why the dragon was so furious and destroyed this place like this. But they were sure that they would be in trouble if they had to face the dragon. Zephyra, how are you? Very bad. I broke a few ribs. Zephyra's body was still straight, but that was just on the surface. As a dragon slayer, she wouldn't show any weakness even when she was injured. Amon is nearby. I'll tell him to come and pick us up. There's no need. That dragon might not have gone far. We can't let Amon get involved. Inform our men to retreat. If we've been exposed, we can't let our other teammates get involved. But your injury? It's fine. I won't die, Zephyr said coldly. For the next 3 days, we must not have any physical contact with our teammates. Maybe the dragon is watching us in the dark, said Zephyr with a cold face. I understand. Zephyr's heart was heavy. The situation had become more and more complicated. The dragon definitely wasn't Calamity Cui Xian, but a higher-level dragon. And the dragon wasn't something their team could fight against. Of course, it wasn't all bad news. That dragon might not be an evil dragon, and it might not be their enemy. But now, she could only comfort herself like this. After all, they were facing an enemy that they couldn't defeat at all. Deep in the night, Portia was sleeping soundly when someone knocked on the door. In her pajamas, Portia opened the door in the dark. Just then, she saw Zephyr leaning against the door frame. She was covered in dirt. Her face and clothes were also covered in wounds and blood. Ah, Zephyr, what's wrong? I'm fine. Can you help me in? Zephyr asked weakly. She'd been holding on all the way. When they reached the door, she still revealed her weakest side. Chapter 1955. Portia hurriedly helped Zephyr back into the room. Bear with it. I'll call an ambulance. Don't call an ambulance. I'm fine, Zephyr said with difficulty. Why? You're hurt like this. Portia looked at Zephyr anxiously. I said I'm fine. Help me into my room. Portia helped Zephyr back into the room. Zephyr said in a weak voice, There's a bottle in my desk drawer. Bring it to me. Portia opened the drawer. There was a bottle of white liquid inside. However, there was no brand on it. Portia didn't know what kind of medicine it was. Portia brought the bottle to Zephyr, hesitating whether to give it to her or not. Zephyr, are you sure the liquid in the bottle is drinkable? I think it's best to find a professional doctor. I know what I'm doing. Even in her weakest state, Zephyr was still very conscious. Okay. Portia handed the bottle to Zephyr. Zephyr opened the bottle and drank the white liquid in one gulp. The liquid in the bottle could only temporarily relieve her injuries. She had other medicines, but most of them could only be used when she was in real danger. She couldn't use them now. Portia was still worried. After a long hesitation, she said, Zephyr, our boss is a doctor. I'll ask him to take a look at your injuries. Don't worry. Our boss won't tell anyone about your injuries. Zephyr also hesitated for a while, but she finally nodded. Okay. Portia immediately called Chen Zhao. Portia, give me a reason not to kill you. Chen Zhao's tone was rather nasty. Do you know what time it is? Boss. There's a problem at home. My roommate is hurt. Send her to the hospital if she's hurt. Why are you calling me? Aren't you an illegal doctor? Then, I want to hire you now. Ha. Portia, do you know how much I get paid? How much? Including the price for disturbing my sleep, I'll give you a discount. $2 million. Portia's voice immediately became sharp and resounding. Are you crazy? How could anyone pay such a high price? You know that $2 million might not be enough to hire me. If I don't know you, you'll have to pay more. I don't have that much money. You can pay on credit. Write me an IOU. I have no money, Portia said angrily. All right then, I'm going to bed. Good night. Boss, I'm really in a hurry. We'll talk tomorrow. With that, he hung up. Portia angrily smashed the phone on the floor. Bastard, 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 this bastard. After venting her frustrations, Portia picked up her phone again. Good, I didn't break the phone. Portia looked at Zephyr apologetically. Zephyr, I'm sorry. That bastard refused to come. It's okay. Take a rest first. I'll call the boss in the morning, said Portia. All right. Portia looked at Zephyr. Zephyr didn't even close her eyes, and just laid there weakly. Portia, take a nap. I'm not used to sleeping at a time like this. As a dragon slayer, Zephyr had been injured many times. Every time she was injured, she would stay awake the entire time. She would never allow herself to fall into a deep sleep. Portia couldn't understand. Why didn't she sleep with such a serious injury? Why didn't she call a doctor? Zephyr, who hurt you? Are you sure we don't need to call the police? I said it's okay. I fell and hurt myself, Zephyr said calmly. Fell and hurt. Portia looked at Zephyr. Zephyr, can't you be more careful with your lies? Portia couldn't feel the sincerity in Zephyr's lies at all. Zephyr just lay there in silence. Portia stayed up until dawn, helping to take care of Zephyr the whole time. Zephyr, I think I should raise the rent. Have you ever seen such a responsible roommate? You can go to sleep. I don't need your care. I really don't understand. Why don't you sleep? At least you'll feel better. Portia looked at Zephyr. Even she felt uncomfortable. If it were her, she wouldn't be able to sleep anymore. But Zephyr was so seriously injured, yet she didn't sleep. Portia dialed Chen Zhao's number again. Boss, if you don't come to treat my friend, I won't be able to go to work. Also, I won't be able to go next week. You're threatening me. I'm not threatening you. Portia's voice softened. I'm just telling you the truth. Just you wait. Chen Zhao was furious. It was already an hour later when Chen Zhao arrived at Portia's house. When he knocked on Portia's door, Portia started to complain. Boss, you're too slow. Who told you to live so far away? Who told you to pay me so little? I can only live so far away. Who told you not to be capable enough? If you were, I'd pay you more. Who told you to only give me so little work? I didn't even have the chance to show off. If you think the work is too little, I'll be happy to give you more work. Chen Zhao sneered at Portia. After entering Portia's house, Chen Zhao studied the place. Is this where you're renting? It looks nice. If she hadn't seen Chen Zhao's house, Portia would think that it was nice. But after seeing Mingyue Villa and Mirror Lake Villa, Portia felt that her house was shabby. Chen Zhao's words were even more hypocritical. Chen Zhao sniffed. What a heavy smell of blood. Is it your friend's blood? Yes, she vomited a few mouthfuls of blood last night. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao complaining. She didn't sleep at all last night. Her eyes were wide open the whole time. I feel bad just looking at her. She's so injured and still won't sleep. I don't know what she's thinking. Why didn't you call an ambulance? Did you call the police? Chen Zhao asked. She won't let me. Won't let me? Why? I don't know. Portia brought Chen Zhao into Zephyr's room. However, the room was empty. There was no one on the bed. Suddenly, Chen Zhao saw Zephyr hiding behind the door. Zephyr attacked him from behind. Without any hesitation, Chen Zhao threw Zephyr over his shoulder, throwing her heavily to the front. Chapter 1956. She smashed the table and fell to the ground, spitting out blood continuously. Ah, boss, what are you doing? I asked you to heal Zevra, not to kill her. Chen Zhao just stood there. She attacked me first. Zephyr kept vomiting blood, but her strong willpower was still supporting her. What are you doing, Riva? This is my boss. I asked her to treat you. Riva was a person's habit, even if it was someone Portia had called. She was also used to testing after subduing someone. She was even on guard against Portia. Even if she was injured, a normal person might not be her match. Moreover, she had deliberately planned a sneak attack. She had thought that it would be a sure thing. However, not only had Chen Zhao discovered her sneak attack, he had even counterattacked. This made her wonder if she was really too weak. She couldn't even beat a normal person. Chen Zhao stood there with his arms crossed. Do you still want treatment? If not, I'm leaving. Also, she doesn't look like she needs treatment. She can actually sneak attack me. Looks like she's quite lively. Boss, she keeps spitting out blood. She looks like she's about to die. Hurry and take a look at Riva. Are you sure she won't attack me again? I'm sure. I'm very sure. Are you right, Riva? Sorry, Riva snorted coldly. Okay, lie back on the bed. I'll take a look. With Portia's help, Riva lay back on the bed. Chen Zhao sat on the edge of the bed. Is it okay to take off your shirt? Yes. Riva nodded slightly. Even though she was in so much pain, she still controlled herself and maintained her rationality and vigilance. Chen Zhao pressed on Riva's chest. Her ribs are broken. Riva wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. You broke one. You're in good spirits. You still have the energy to argue with me. How did you get injured? Other than the injuries I caused. I was injured, Riva said. What do you do? Agent? Mercenary? Killer? Or an undercover police officer? Zephyr remained silent. Chen Zhao did not care if she answered his question or not. Your second broken rib on the left pierced into your lung, Chen Zhao said. If you're willing, I can do a small surgery for you now. Sure. This is an anesthetic. I don't need anesthetics, Zephyr said coldly. Are you sure? This kind of pain is extraordinary. I will cut open the skin on your chest and use bioglue to repair your lungs. Zephyr still had that cool expression on her face as she said, No problem. Zephyr, you have to think this through. This is an operation. How can it be done without anesthetics? Portia also tried to persuade her. I said no problem. You can do it. Let me make this clear. Although this is a minor surgery, in your condition, you might die from the pain. If you die, don't blame me. I understand. Chen Zhao looked at Portia. Are you sure it's okay? Let's do it. Since Zephyr said so herself. Chen Zhao took out an alcohol bottle. After smearing it evenly on Zephyr's chest, he took out a scalpel. Of course, before using the scalpel, Chen Zhao still had to stop the bleeding with acupuncture. He didn't want to make it too bloody. Also, Zephyr's condition was not suitable for her to lose too much blood. But even so, the scene was inevitably covered in blood. After all, this wasn't an operating room. After ignoring the possibility of a fungal infection, there were still various flaws. Of course, the surgery itself was only a minor one. It was not difficult at all for Chen Zhao. Portia watched Chen Zhao's dazzling surgery process. It was her first time seeing Chen Zhao treat a patient. He was completely different from the stereotype in the past. In the past, Portia's impression of Chen Zhao was that he was undisciplined, frivolous, stingy, and a jerk. But now, Chen Zhao was unprecedentedly serious. Every movement was as smooth as flowing water. From cutting open the abdomen to stitching up the wound, the entire process only took 10 minutes. But for Portia and Zephyr, it felt as long as a century. Chen Zhao looked at Zephyr, who was still conscious. He was astonished by Zephyr's tenacious willpower. He had never seen such a stubborn ordinary person, and a woman at that. The woman did not make a single sound during the operation. After all, Chen Zhao had made a hole in her chest just now. But even though she was trembling from the pain, she still maintained absolute silence. Even Chen Zhao himself could not do this. This made Chen Zhao more interested in Zephyr. It's done. Take an antibiotic every morning, afternoon and night. The stitches will take 3 days to remove. Is Zephyr done? I've done everything I can. Chen Zhao took out a cigarette and turned to Portia. Do you have a fire? Okay. Portia nodded. Boss, there's a patient here and this is my house. Also, when did you smoke? Chen Zhao did not smoke often, but he had been very focused just now. Now that he had relaxed, he needed a cigarette to relax. This was the so-called smoke after the fact. She's fine now. With my medical skills, she won't be unable to withstand even a second-hand smoke. Zephyr said weakly. Give me one too. Chen Zhao casually tossed a cigarette to Zephyr. Portia was completely speechless at the two patients. How could a doctor and patient smoke at the same time? That was too irresponsible. Who did this to you? Chen Zhao asked curiously. I feel like you were hit by a car or something even stronger. A car crash, Riva answered and blew out a long smoke ring at the same time. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. He could tell that Zephyr was definitely not hit by a car. Chen Zhao said that her injuries looked like they were caused by a car, but there were other small injuries on her body. There were also the stains on her body, which seemed to be from rolling in the mountains. However, he would never have dreamed that Chen Zhao was the one who caused these injuries. Neither did Zephyr expect that Chen Zhao was the culprit behind her injuries. Boss, how many days does Zephyr need to recover? 3 days, Chen Zhao said. If she's completely healed, we'll see how strong she is. 3 days is enough. Zephyr's injury is so serious, and she even had a small surgery. Chapter 1957. She's much stronger than you, Chen Zhao said. Other than the injuries from last night, Zephyr also had many old injuries. These old injuries didn't make her weak. Instead, they made her stronger. She was like a strong tiger cub. Portia recalled how she couldn't lift the suitcase at all that day. Zephyr, on the other hand, could carry it with one hand. She seemed really strong. Zephyr, is there a little monster living in your body? Sir, you're strong too. After all, I haven't been shoulder thrown in a long time. Zephyr looked at Chen Zhao. However, there was still some dissatisfaction in her tone. After all, she was heavily injured and couldn't even use 20% of her strength. Boss works out every day. Swimming, boxing, running. He's a fitness freak. Zephyr wasn't surprised. Chen Zhao was indeed very strong. Even though she was heavily injured, a normal person couldn't beat her. However, Chen Zhao could throw her over his shoulder when she tried to sneak up on him. After I recover, I'll compete with you again, Zephyr said, dissatisfied. Zephyr, you can't beat Boss. He can kill more than a dozen armed bandits by himself. Zephyr ignored Portia's advice. She muttered to herself that she could do it under normal circumstances too. Although the dragon slayers were determined, they more or less had some character flaws. For example, Zephyr had been treated as a genius or a monster among her peers since she was young. She'd also developed a proud and unyielding personality. In the past, all of her competitors had been defeated in front of her. Even those who were stronger and more outstanding than her couldn't escape the fate of failure. I'm hungry, Zephyr said. Zephyr, you just had surgery. You can't eat now, right? Portia looked at Chen Zhao. She can eat if she wants. It's fine as long as she doesn't eat stimulating food. Plus, she was injured in her lungs, not her stomach. Okay, I'll go get some food. Portia looked at Chen Zhao. Boss, do you want to eat something? Every day, you're the one who freeloads off me. This time, I'm going to freeload off you too. Boss, I don't have much food in the fridge. Portia knew how big Chen Zhao's appetite was. In her eyes, Chen Zhao was just a moving rice bucket. There was no limit to his appetite. Portia had no choice but to take out all the ingredients in the house. Moreover, she doubted that with so many ingredients, Chen Zhao wouldn't even be 30% full. Very doubtful. Although Chen Zhao had said that Zephyr would need 3 days to get out of bed, Zephyr still needed 3 days. However, Zephyr did not have that many scruples. Even though he was sweating profusely from the pain, he was still jumping around on the ground. At the dining table, he stuffed himself with food, especially after seeing how much Chen Zhao ate at the dining table. Zephyr actually had the idea of competing again. He didn't care if he could overeat right now. She learned how Chen Zhao ate. Chen Zhao finished the steak in 10 seconds. She also finished the steak in 10 seconds. Chen Zhao finished the salad in 10 seconds. She did the same. Portia didn't even have the chance to pick up her chopsticks. The two moving rice buckets devoured the food on the table at an astonishing speed. Zephyr soon realized that she really couldn't beat Chen Zhao. At least in terms of appetite, she lost completely. Chen Zhao glanced at Zephyr and swallowed the food in his mouth. You can't let yourself eat too much. He could roughly estimate how much Zephyr could eat. Zephyr's normal appetite was about the same as an adult man's. If she forced herself, she could at most eat the food of 2 men. She definitely couldn't eat any more. One had to know that one's stomach could really burst from overeating. Zephyr wiped her mouth unwillingly. I'm not in a good condition today. I usually eat more. Zephyr looked at Chen Zhao's astonishing appetite and eating speed. She actually knew that even in her best condition, she wouldn't be able to eat more than Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao had already eaten the food of 2 people. In less than 30 seconds, he completely devoured a roast chicken. Moreover, he still didn't plan on stopping. He was still devouring the food like a tornado. Can one's appetite also be trained? Zephyr asked. Portia felt that Chen Zhao had led Zephyr astray. She didn't expect Zephyr to be so competitive. She even wanted to compete with her appetite. The more you exercise, the more you eat, Chen Zhao said. Of course, after training, if your stomach gets used to expanding, it can expand by 10 times. But normal people don't recommend it. After all, it's not healthy. Zephyr only heard the first part. She didn't hear Chen Zhao's suggestion at all. This was Zephyr's personality. Even if it was a meaningless thing like appetite, she still wanted to be first. How do you usually train? Zephyr asked. If you're free in the morning, do 2 triathlons first and 3 at night to help digestion. Also do some anaerobic exercise. Anaerobic exercise uses up the most stamina. I prefer diving without equipment, Zephyr said. How long can you dive for? Should surpass the world record. About half an hour, Chen Zhao said casually. Currently, the world record for diving without equipment was 20 minutes and 21 seconds. Portia stared at Chen Zhao in shock. She'd indeed seen Chen Zhao dive before. He often dove into the sea and then disappeared for a long time. Zephyr thought about it. Her diving ability was close to the world record. It seemed that she'd lost to Chen Zhao in diving again. Zephyr secretly encouraged herself. She had one more item to beat Chen Zhao. Zephyr pretended to be calm. Very good. What's the depth of your diving equipment? If you want to compete with me, it's meaningless, Chen Zhao said calmly. Chen Zhao's breathing system was basically non-human. It had also evolved and could absorb oxygen in water. He was an enhancer and his body was countless times stronger than normal people. So water pressure was also meaningless to him. He also had the ability to control water, so he could dive even the deepest trench in the world like it was flat ground. Even the Mariana Trench, a deep sea where even microorganisms couldn't survive, Chen Zhao could dive like it was flat ground. How much? Zephyr asked, unconvinced. Did you reach the world record? Zephyr thought about it and looked up at Chen Zhao. Did you surpass the world record? Chen Zhao nodded. A lot. Chapter 1958. Zephyr was very hurt. In terms of diving depth, she was still far from the world record. The duration of diving was related to the capacity of one's lungs, while the depth was related to one's physical strength. Of course, this did not mean that the world record holder was better than Zephyr. It also involved skills and endurance. That kind of world record was the result of countless attempts, and the final result was obtained. Portia was not surprised at all. Anyway, she often saw Chen Zhao swim. There was no doubt about Chen Zhao's swimming ability. Moreover, Chen Zhao's entire family was astonishingly good at swimming, especially Zherlin and Feilai. Feilai was a member of the coastal rescue team. Plus, Chen Zhao's monstrous motor skills. Thus, Portia was not surprised by any of Chen Zhao's athletic abilities. Zephyr, I told you, don't think about beating boss in fitness and sports. He's really unbeatable in this aspect. I saw with my own eyes how he crushed those robbers who attacked him. Portia hated Chen Zhao to the core, but she trusted him completely in this aspect. She really did not think that there was anyone stronger than Chen Zhao in this world. However, she did not expect her words to ignite Zephyr's competitive spirit. I'm not in a good state right now, Zephyr said, unconvinced. When I recover, I can do it too. This meal is really uncomfortable. Chen Zhao picked up a tissue and wiped his mouth and hands. I don't feel anything at all. Portia's eyes were filled with resentment as she stared at Chen Zhao. Boss, this is half a month's worth of food. You ate half a month's worth of food. You ate quite a lot at my place too. What's wrong with just eating one meal from you? Also, it's so uncomfortable. You can't even stimulate my appetite. Chen Zhao stood up and said, I'm going back. Also, remember to come to work in the afternoon, or I'll deduct your salary. Boss, I still have to take care of Zephra. I don't, Zephyr said indifferently. Zephra, how can you be like this? You should say something for me. I'm telling the truth. I don't need your care. Boss, I'll go with you. I can even save my gas money. Then how will you come back? I won't lend you my car. I can pay for your car's gas, right? Said Portia. Are you sure? The fuel consumption of each of my cars is much higher than that of your own car. Chen Zhao had never considered the problem of fuel consumption. All the cars he chose were based on performance and comfort. Forget it, I'll just drive my own car. Portia looked as if she had nothing left to live for. Zephra, be careful when I'm not around. Call me if you're in trouble. Chen Zhao and Portia had both left. Only Zephyr was left in the house. Zephyr took out her phone. Alux, it's me. Zevra, how are you now? Your injuries seem to be very serious. It's all right. I've received professional treatment, Zephyr said. How's your injury? I'm fine. My luck is better than yours. It had to be said that Alux's luck was indeed better than Thera's. They were all using shadow cloaks and were standing together. But when they were hit, the damage was different. Of course, apart from luck, another important reason was that Alux was an enhancer. His constitution was much higher than Zephyr's. How is it? Did you find any useful information? I've investigated the situation of the Los Angeles area's supernatural world. There are 2 or 3 local supernatural organizations in Los Angeles, but they're all small fries that aren't worth mentioning. However, there's one thing that's very strange. The Los Angeles area's supernatural world seems to be very xenophobic. Other than these small fries, if there are any foreign spiritualists who are active here, they'll definitely be severely punished. Even if they don't do evil, they'll most likely be expelled. If they commit serious crimes here, they'll definitely disappear without a trace, Electrolux said. Who did it? I don't know who did it. But in any case, the supernatural world of Los Angeles is definitely not as simple as it looks on the surface. It's very likely that there's a hidden expert, and it might even be the work of the dragon race that hibernated here. It can't be the dragon race. Whether it's an ordinary dragon race or an evil dragon, they wouldn't care about the activities of a human shaman unless it involves their own interests, Zephyr speculated. What about the paranormal organization that you've investigated? Are they possible? One of them is an idol organization. They don't have any close organizations or activities. They usually conduct some small activities in the L.A. area, like a small competition or a meeting, Elux said. The other 2 organizations are related to the government. One of them has been established for more than 20 years, but it's very weak. It can't even deal with a small haunted community. The other organization has been established for a shorter period of time, and its strength is below average. The strongest one should be Brits, who's known as the Little Encyclopedia of Magic. He's quite famous in North America. I once met him during a supernatural event. His strength is also very average. These 3 organizations can basically be eliminated. Is there no more information? I've investigated a few spiritualists, but the strongest one is barely average. There's no one stronger than that. There aren't any spiritualists with extraordinary strength? No, but I've investigated the local spiritualists. They said that 2 years ago, someone in the L.A. area awakened the 3rd night. I just don't know what happened to the 3rd night. Oh, awakened the 3rd night? If it's successful, then it should be very powerful, right? No one knows who awakened it. Until now, no one has heard of a particularly powerful spiritualist or a genius. Give up on this direction. Don't investigate in this direction anymore. We're looking for dragons, not spiritualists. Dragons don't need to awaken, Thera said. Other than that, there's no other information? There's still some immature information. We need to dig deeper. All right then. Continue investigating. If you find any clues, contact me immediately. Chapter 1959. Portia, did you lose him? Boss, you're driving a supercar, and I'm driving a second-hand car. Why do you think my car can keep up with yours? Portia asked, annoyed. I'm not driving very fast. I'm only driving 80 kilometers per hour. You should go first. It'll only take 10 minutes at most to reach Mingyue Villa. Fine. Chen Zhao hung up. He could already see Mingyue Villa. Portia wasn't driving very fast, but she wasn't falling behind by much. Portia's car had also reached the highway. Suddenly the car in front slowed down. Portia couldn't turn in time, and rear-ended the car in front. Portia immediately stopped the car. The car in front that was rear-ended also stopped. Portia was burning with anger, but when she saw that it was a woman who got out of the car in front, she calmed down a little. How did you drive? Portia asked the woman. The speed limit is at least 80 kilometers per hour. Why did you suddenly slow down? I'm sorry. I think there's something wrong with my car. The woman looked at Portia innocently. I'll take responsibility for this accident. Can you lend me your phone? I'll call the insurance company. Fine. The woman didn't argue and even admitted her mistake. Portia's anger also dissipated. She took out her phone and gave it to the woman. The phone lit up in the woman's hand for a moment, then dimmed again. Is the phone broken? The woman returned the phone to Portia. Let me see. It really is broken. Strange. It was fine just now. Why did it suddenly break? She had just spoken to Chen Zhao on the phone. Why did it suddenly break? Portia wondered if she didn't pay attention to the battery just now, and it ran out of battery. Where's your phone? Portia asked. The woman took out her phone. The screen was already cracked. Clearly, it couldn't be used anymore. When I rear-ended the car, it fell to the ground, and I accidentally stepped on it. I see. Then let's go to my boss's house and borrow his phone, Portia said. Your boss? Is it far from here? No. See that house on the cliff? It's there. What a big house. Your boss must be rich, right? Of course, only rich people can hire me. Portia rolled her eyes. Get in my car. In the car, Portia looked at the woman beside her again. The woman was very tall, about 185 meters. She was also very beautiful, and her clothes were very tasteful. She looked like a model. What's your name? Cui Xiyin. Portia brought Cui Xiyin into the Bright Moon Villa. By now, Chen Zhao had already changed into a t-shirt and boxers. He was lying on the living room sofa, playing with his phone. Chen Zhao's children were running and playing in the living room. Among so many children, only Didi La was reading quietly. Even little Larissa was busy climbing up and down the princess's body with Briar, Bramble, Simba, and Nana. The princess's mountain-like body was enough for the 5 of them to move around. Just then, Portia walked into the living room with Trish. Chen Zhao put down his phone and looked up at the 2 girls. Portia, who is she? Chen Zhao was very curious. Portia was right behind him. How could she bring a woman back so quickly? Boss, I rear-ended her car. My phone is out of battery, and her phone is broken too. She's here to call the insurance company and then leave. Chen Zhao stared at Cui Xiyin, whose expression was a bit stiff. Sir, is there something on my face? Driz had to be nervous, because there was a dragon's head in the yard. Even the most arrogant dragon slayer wouldn't dare to treat a dragon's head like a decoration. But this guy had actually placed a dragon's head in the yard so openly. Regardless of whether this man was too arrogant, or he really had the ability, Cui Xiyin's hair stood on end. At least it meant that Saint and didn't lie to her. This man really had the ability to make one's hair stand on end. Chen Zhao stared straight at Cui Xiyin. Boss, don't you know that it's very rude to look at a woman like that? I'll let it go this time. Don't bring strangers to my house next time. Chen Zhao looked away. He didn't find anything strange about Cui Xiyin. Cui Xiyin secretly heaved a sigh of relief, somewhat regretting her rashness. She'd originally thought that sneaking in to find out Chen Zhao's strength would be a piece of cake. But when she faced Chen Zhao, she realized how much pressure he gave her. Even though Chen Zhao had looked away, he still used his small world to monitor Cui Xiyin from all directions. Because of this, Cui Xiyin felt like her hair stood on end. They both had their own small worlds, but their abilities were very different. Cui Xiyin didn't even dare to move. She was sure that if she moved even a little, this human man would kill her directly. This human man would directly kill her, pull out her tendons and peel off her skin. He would also place her head in the yard like a trophy. She even had to control her heartbeat, so that it wouldn't beat too fast. After a while, Cui Xin finished her call, and Portia saw her off. Cui Xin didn't even say goodbye to Chen Zhao. She hurriedly left Mingyue Villa. Chen Zhao suddenly jumped up from the sofa. There was something wrong with that woman. The ring that the woman was wearing was different from the one he was wearing. But it was definitely the same as his magic ring. It was used to suppress aura. Chen Zhao hurried to the entrance of Mingyue Villa and saw Portia return. "Boss, why did you come out? Where's that woman?" "She left." "What do you want to do to her?" "Boss, you already have a child with Miss Fei Lai. You better control yourself." "What nonsense." Chen Zhao's expression darkened. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to catch up to that woman. "Don't bring strangers to Mingyue Villa in the future," Chen Zhao said. Portia pouted. "Boss, didn't I stop you from making mistakes? Do you have to be so stingy?" "That woman isn't a good person." "You don't look like a good person either," Portia said bluntly. "Let me have a look at your phone." "What's wrong with my phone?" Portia handed it to Chen Zhao. When Chen Zhao took the phone, he indeed felt a magical aura from it. But as he took the phone, the magical aura was dispelled. He turned it on again, and the phone lit up again. "That woman tampered with your phone. She purposely entered Mingyue Villa." Chapter 1960. Portia was stunned. She still didn't really believe him. But the phone in Chen Zhao's hand did light up. "You said she did something to my phone. How did she stop my phone from turning on?" "You won't understand such high-tech work," Chen Zhao said in disdain. Portia didn't believe that Chen Zhao was talking about advanced technology. Chen Zhao's understanding of the high-tech appliances and equipment in the house was even lower than Portia's. How could Portia believe that Chen Zhao knew more about technology than her? "Boss, is there really a problem with that woman?" "Yes." Chen Zhao nodded. "Then what does she want to do? Sneak into Mingyue Villa to set off a bomb?" "I don't know," Chen Zhao said. "They're probably here to ask about my family." Chen Zhao's head hurt. These were troubled times. All sorts of people had popped up. Furthermore, he was too careless. Even if he didn't notice that woman's mistake earlier, he wouldn't be able to do so. Just from the coincidence of her rear-ending Portia, he should have guessed that there was something wrong with her. The Empress Dowager herself was slow to realize it. Chen Zhao was annoyed. Next time, he would definitely not be careless. As long as there was the slightest bit of doubt, he would make his move. Why did he care so much? He was not a good person. Anyway, this time, Chen Zhao was sure that this person was a bad guy. Sheng'an was currently soaking in a container. However, after Cui Xin returned, Sheng'an opened his eyes. Although Sainton accepted Trish's help. However, this did not mean that he trusted Cui Xin. Even if Cui Xin was his sister, Sheng'an was always on guard against Cui Xin. Although they were separated by the container, Sheng'an could still see Cui Xin's expression. "You seem to have run into something bad. Let me guess what it is." Sheng'an spoke from within the container. But the strange thing was that he could actually speak in the liquid. "You disguised yourself as an ordinary person and snuck into that human's house, and were almost discovered, right?" Sheng'an knew Cui Xiyue too well. Whether it was from the perspective of human morality, or from the perspective of the dragon race, she was an extremely evil dragon. Silly sat in a chair in front of Saint Anne's container, her chest heaving. "Do you think my experience can make you happy? So, what did you gain from this infiltration?" "I discovered that the human is indeed very powerful, but he is not completely invulnerable." What weakness could he possibly have? He didn't discover any weaknesses, but he made a fatal mistake. "What mistake?" "He said that a dragon's head was placed in his courtyard," Cui Xin said. Sheng'an furrowed his brows at first, then a look of surprise appeared on his face. "This time, you don't need to take out your wealth. Maybe there's a way for our people to participate." Placing a dragon's head in the courtyard as a decoration was already a huge taboo for the dragon race. Sheng'an continued to stare coldly at Cui Xin. "Why are you helping me? If you want my treasure, then don't even think about it. I won't give you my treasure, not even a single silver coin. Chui Silly smiled as she looked at Sainton in the container. This isn't the best place to hide. You're heavily injured, yet you still want to hide here. This means that this place is very important to you. You hid your treasures here, right? Chui Xian sneered. Shengyan, who was in the container, suddenly became agitated, and panic appeared in his eyes. It seems that I guessed correctly. The treasures are here. If you dare take even a single silver coin from me, I'll kill you, Shengyan growled as he stared at Chui Xian. I don't want your treasures. I only want one thing. Chui Xian stared at Shengyan. If you don't agree, then I'll take all of your treasures. What thing? Shengyan looked at Chui Xian angrily. The Caltripal, Chui Xian said. I don't have that thing. Shengyan denied without even thinking. Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. If you give me the Caltripal, not only will I not touch your treasures, I'll even give you information about the treasure island. I've been to the treasure island before, so I know its location. Chui Xian's words were extremely bewitching. That place is filled with endless treasures. Don't you want any of them? Shengyan was silent for a moment, then said, I really don't know what the Caltripal is. Maybe you really don't know what the Caltripal is. Maybe it's hidden in your treasures, Chui Xian said. At the same time, Chui Xian took out a drawing that she had just drawn. This is the shape of the Caltripal. Shengyan narrowed his eyes. Originally, he really didn't know what the Caltripal was. However, after seeing the drawing of the Caltripal, he immediately remembered. The Caltripal was indeed in his hands, but it wasn't piled up among his treasures. The Dragon Clan had a habit of splitting their treasures in half. This was to avoid any mishaps from happening, so that their treasures wouldn't be taken away at once. Shengyan also had this habit. You don't have to deny it. This Caltripal was obtained 200 years ago when you slaughtered a Native American tribe, Chui Xian said. So what? Maybe I've already thrown it away. After all, I'm only interested in shiny and valuable things. You definitely still have it. Chui Xian said with certainty. The Caltripal has some kind of mysterious power. You won't be mistaken. Even if you can't tell what the Caltripal is for, you won't throw it away easily. Just like how Shengyan understood Chui Xian. Chui Xian also understood Shengyan. Shengyan finally laughed. He finally felt that he had the right to speak. What's the Caltripal for? Shengyan was indeed as Chui Xian had thought. Although he didn't know what the Caltripal was for, he could still feel the power it contained, so he still kept it. With his vision and experience, he had experienced this many times. Something that seemed useless at first would eventually be found to have great value or use. Now that Chui Xian was so eager to obtain the Caltripal, it meant that the Caltripal was indeed very useful or valuable. Otherwise, Chui Xian wouldn't be unmoved by the treasures she had hidden in the manor. Chui Xian was also a dragon, and her greed for treasures was deeply imprinted in her blood. It was impossible for her not to be moved, unless her desire for the Caltripal was greater than the treasures. That's my question. You just have to answer me. Do you accept this deal? Chui Xian said coldly. Before I figure out what the Caltripal is for, I won't accept this deal. Chapter 1961. Chui Xian cursed. That's a part of the artifact created by the Mayan civilization, Chui Xian said. Artifact? Shengyan couldn't help but look greedy. Think about it. Do you want to use this divine artifact's component to exchange for information about the treasure island? Or do you want to say that you won't get anything? Not only will I kill you, but I'll also take away the treasures you've hidden here. As for your secret treasure, I'll definitely find it. When that time comes, you'll have nothing left, Chui Xian said. You only told me information that I don't know is true or false. And you want to exchange it for an artifact? You're too greedy. You're the one with a big appetite. It's just a fragment of a god artifact, not a god artifact. Think about it, the treasures on the island. Even if you recover your true form, you can still sleep on the treasures. How wonderful would that be? Shengyan couldn't help but lick his lips. He couldn't hide the greed in his eyes. What the dragon race pursued in their lives was nothing more than treasures. Since the prismatic all is a part of the artifact, does that mean that you also have a part? Shengyan asked. Cui Xian's expression grew colder. Sheng'an didn't hide his greed at all. What? You want to take the part of the artifact from me? Cui Xian was also wary of Sheng'an. Let's think about how to deal with the Dragon Slayer, Sheng'an said. To deal with the Dragon Slayer, we first have to prepare a battlefield. We can use the information that the Dragon Slayer accidentally entered the dragon race to attract the dragon race. But most of the dragon race are old-fashioned. They won't show themselves directly, and they won't fight in human cities or nearby areas. So we have to choose a battlefield for them, Cui Xian said. Humans and the dragon race had always maintained contact. To a certain extent, they were considered relatively stable allies. Neither would initiate a war against the other. In fact, even the lawless Cui Xian didn't dare to show herself in broad daylight, because the consequences of doing so would be very serious. By then, it wouldn't just be the Dragon Slayer hunting her. Even the dragon race would hunt her down, because she broke the agreement between humans and the dragon race. Initially, the Dragon Clan had not supported her misdeeds in the spirit world, nor had they interfered or objected to her actions. However, this didn't mean that she could do whatever she wanted. After all, there were many dragons that were more powerful than her in the Dragon Clan. Then what are your plans? Find a remote place, and open up an alternate dimension as the battlefield. Then lure the Dragon Slayer inside. When the time comes, he won't be able to escape, Cui Xian said. That's a good idea, Sheng'an said. However, that Dragon Slayer is not weak. With our levels, I'm afraid we'll need at least a lot of people of the same level to kill him. I know that there are 2 radical dragon fathers in the Dragon Clan. These 2 dragon fathers are husband and wife. They despise humans very much and always believe that humans should be the slaves of the Dragon Clan. I have the same idea as you. Although Sheng'an was full of pride towards humans, he had been in human society for a long time. He knew that this was no longer the era of the dragon race. Although the dragon race was powerful, the humans had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. Moreover, they also had powerful weapons that even the dragon race had to retreat from. Of course, if an all-out war really broke out between the humans and the dragon race would definitely lose. But the humans wouldn't have it any better. It was more likely that both sides would suffer, and the entire ecology of the Earth would be destroyed. This was just like the International Treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. Humans and the dragon race also relied on their own strength to achieve a balance. It had to be said that this was a mockery of reality. Cui Xian sneered. I'm not like the 2 of them. Although I'm wanted by the spirit world, I still have freedom of movement. However, the 2 of them are banned by human countries. They forbid them from entering their country's territory. Otherwise, they'll be killed. Oh, which human country would dare to impose such a ban on 2 dragon fathers? The East Wuxia. Cui Xian said gloatingly. Sheng'an frowned. He had been to the East. However, he went as a human. But the moment he stepped into Wuxia's territory, he was already targeted. He felt that if he dared to do anything wrong, there would definitely be thousands of troops and horses tearing him apart. During that trip, Sheng'an came and left in a hurry. Since then, Sheng'an had never set foot in Wuxia again. He still felt at ease in America. No one could restrict him here. In the past 400 years, he had been accused and imprisoned by humans. Then he calmly left the prison. Moreover, magic was barren here. Even if spiritualists discovered his identity, they couldn't do anything to him. He could easily destroy those spiritualists who tried to go against him. What about the 2 Dragon Father level dragons? Where are they now? They hate humans very much. It seems that they suffered a great loss in Wuxia. In the past 20 years, they've been hiding on Dragon Island to recuperate. Will they make a move this time? Sheng'an asked. They will. As long as the news reaches the 2 Dragon Fathers, they and their children will be very happy to use this method to announce their return. Their children? How many? Their way of thinking is extreme among the dragon race. Their fertility is also extreme. In the past 2,000 years, they gave birth to a total of 12 children. They also raised their children to have extreme thinking. Dragons were a very strange race. Their fertility was very weak. but they could give birth to children with almost all races. It was normal for a dragon race couple to give birth to 1 or 2 children in their lifetime. Giving birth to more than 2 children was really a blessing from the dragon god. If they could give birth to 12 children, then they would really be blessed. Shungen was a little dumbfounded. Dragons could give birth to 12 children. How strong was their fertility to be able to do that? I heard that they have their own secret. Many dragon race have asked them for advice. They've also gained a lot from it. Sheng'an's eyes lit up. This was a cost-free trade. If he could get the secret, other dragon race would definitely spend a lot of money to buy it. But the dragon fathers were destined to be impossible for him to get his hands on. What was a dragon father? It was a dragon race of a higher level than them. Either they were talented and relied on their own efforts to break through to the dragon father level, or they automatically advanced to the dragon father level when they reached 2,000 years old. What are their names? Tugu and Melita. Chapter 1962. Zephyra, are you sure you don't want to rest? Zephyra saw Portia dragging her tired body back, and she didn't look too good. Portia, what's wrong? You don't look too good. I was scolded by my boss. Why? Did you do something wrong? No, I think he's just looking for trouble. Why is he looking for trouble? Portia told her what happened at noon. Tell me, how can that woman be a bad person? Zephyr thought for a moment and said, that woman is really not a good person. You were tricked. What? How is that possible? She suddenly stopped on the highway, and you rear-ended her. It can be said to be a coincidence, but her phone happened to be broken, and your phone happened to be broken as well. Afterward, your boss proved that your phone was tampered with. This means that there's really something wrong with that woman, and you were tricked. Really? Portia was a little stunned. Zephyr nodded. Yes, your boss didn't frame you. Although you are innocent, you did cause trouble for your boss. Hearing Zephyr's words, Portia became even more depressed. Did that woman go to your boss's house just to make a phone call? Seems like it. Portia nodded. She didn't do anything else? Boss seemed to have noticed something wrong with her at first glance. That woman stayed at his house for a few minutes, and I could see that she was very nervous. Zephyr glanced at Portia. When you noticed that woman was nervous, you should have noticed that something was wrong. Forget it if you noticed it. It would be more dangerous. Am I useless? You can't say that. After all, this matter was caused by your boss. It has nothing to do with you. And you are also innocent. I feel much better if you say that. Portia looked at Zephyra. Are you sure you don't want to sleep? You haven't slept for a whole night. I've experienced even longer sleepless nights. Zephyra, what do you do? Are you really like what boss said, a killer or a secret agent? Don't ask, it won't do you any good, Zephyr said calmly. What's so great about it? I've been in contact with it before. I often encounter this kind of thing when I'm with our boss. Does this often happen around your boss? How should I put this? I've been working for the boss for more than 2 months, and I've already encountered similar situations 3 or 4 times. It seems that your boss is also very tired. Riva smiled. I also find it strange. Boss's business seems to be quite proper. Why does this kind of thing always happen? What business does your boss do? Producing and selling beer. Portia said, our boss is a major shareholder of Dashin Beer, which is very popular on the market now. Portia only found out about this recently. Gaia had told her before that Chun Zhao's business was in the beverage industry. However, Portia didn't expect it to be Dashin Beer. Only when she received Citibank's financial report did she realize how rich Chun Zhao was. He had such a huge amount of assets and an astonishing income. She didn't think that Chun Zhao needed to be involved in any illegal businesses. Chun Zhao was really rich. He could even negotiate with the banks with his current savings. He could ask the bank to give him a higher interest rate. After all, the bank would earn a lot if the money was kept in the bank. The bank could use the money to invest and obtain more benefits. Not to mention some high-risk investments. Even buying a high-security fund would earn more than the bank's interest. In America, there were 2 types of customers that banks liked the most. One was the high-spending type. They had a lot of credit cards in the bank and had a lot of spending each month. At the same time, They could pay back the debt steadily. The other type was like Chen Zhao, who had an astronomical amount of cash in the bank. After all, a normal person who deposited a few $1,000s in the bank would be treated like a king. Moreover, Chen Zhao had hundreds of millions of dollars. Moreover, Chen Zhao's spending power was also astonishing. The credit card that Citibank gave Chen Zhao was also of the highest level, the legendary Black Card. It was said that the bank could satisfy all the requests of Black Card customers, even if the request was unreasonable. In reality, it wasn't that amazing. At most, it could satisfy some reasonable requests. If Chen Zhao wanted to open a secondary card, he didn't even need to go to the bank. Andrews would bring the card to Chen Zhao personally. If the bank didn't give him a higher interest rate, Chen Zhao could just say something and change to a different bank. Andrews would probably lose his job. So, in Portia's eyes, Chen Zhao's wealth meant that he didn't need to do any illegal business. Unless Chen Zhao sold nuclear warheads, he wouldn't be able to earn more than he did now. Even those rich people on the Forbes list might have more assets than Chen Zhao. But in terms of earning money, Chen Zhao might not be slower than them. In fact, he might even be faster. When Portia first talked about Chen Zhao, she didn't have a good impression of him. It was mainly because Portia didn't have a good word to say about him. But after interacting with him, she realized that Chen Zhao wasn't that bad. At least, if he was a gang leader, Portia wouldn't just be scolded for making such a mistake. Maybe Portia would just disappear from the world. He wouldn't let Portia have time to complain. This meant that Chen Zhao treated Portia well. At least, it meant that Chen Zhao had a bottom line. She knew very well how easy it was for a rich and powerful person to make an ordinary person disappear from the world. Fortunately, Portia had met Chen Zhao. If it was another boss, she would have died countless times. Just then, Zephyr's phone rang again. Portia, prepare dinner tonight. With that, Zephyr went to answer the call. Zephyr returned to the house and looked outside to make sure that Portia wasn't eavesdropping on her call. I'm Zephyr. What's the news? Zephyr, we might be in big trouble. Today, there were alarms at LAX and LAX train station. Alarms? 2 alarms? Yes, and it's not a departure alarm. Dragons have entered LAX twice. That means that 2 more dragons have come to LAX. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.